Yes.
You
Welcome.
show up and you're thinking to yourself,
Welcome.
yeah. And then she's like, here are the leeches.
And everybody who listens to / watches this episode will be like, what the hell were they talking about before?
And there was this, we have a tiny little stream behind my house. It was one of the reasons we bought the house. And when my son was, I don't know, like 6 or 7, he was really into nature shows, Discovery Channel, Animal Planet, all that. And he comes up this one day with this bucket full of really cloudy water. And he's like, look, Dad, I can't even remember what he thought, eels or something like that. And it was 3 enormous leeches. And they are truly horrifying to watch because they elasticate themselves. They completely change their shape. They're normally these kind of little oval, fat little things, and then they just stretch right out.
This is really great information, John. Thank you. So anyway,
this is my obligatory Laird Barron shadow. Children of old leech,
oh yeah,
right? Yeah, you see, yeah.
Children of small leeches.
Before the show started, we were talking about how Pete liked to pop boils or something. I don't remember exactly.
And Matt got on the application of medicinal leeches to help with grafts.
Yeah. Anyway, welcome to the Lovecraft Easing podcast. Josh Malerman is our guest today. Hey, Josh, thanks for coming.
Hi, everyone.
And he's gone.
Despite all this.
Yeah, really, for the next 2 minutes.
Yeah. And
why did it have to be leeches?
Yeah, John Langan is with us here today. I apologize for that, Josh.
He doesn't regret it half as much as I do.
Yeah. So why don't we do introductions and then talk to Josh? Mike Davis with Lovecraft Easing. Not sure what my job is. John Langan, you were just talking about leeches, weren't you?
Yeah, I'm John Langan, and I'm thinking about switching from the whole writing thing to becoming a leech doctor.
Yeah, it's good to have a backup plan, John.
Or even a first plan. Yeah,
that's good thinking. Yeah. Bridget.
Hello, I'm Bridget, musician, artist, survivor, final girl.
I was wondering if you were going to get to that one today. Pete.
Yes. Oh, Pete Rollick. I watched The Flash, so you don't have to.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that later.
No, I never want to talk about it again.
It was horrible. It was
anyway,
just horrible.
That's me. I write things and I drink a lot.
Wow. Of water.
Of water, yes.
Dr. Carpenter.
So, keeping with the theme, one of my favorite actresses is Cloris Leachman. Anyway, I do 3 things around here.
Frabruca?
I run Lovecraft Easing movie night, and
joke.
Later in the show, we got to talk about the movie we watched last night, which is Mad God. We just have to talk about it. I don't care if you don't want to.
That's fine.
The second thing is I'm running the Lovecraft reread on the Easing Facebook page. We're more than halfway through his stories now, and in the next day or 2, I'm going to post the discussion page for the granddaddy of them all, The Call of Cthulhu. So we're finally there, and if you've been refraining from commenting, this will be your chance.
Is that
we have a prize. This is La Muerta. It's called Onslaught. It's actually a pretty entertaining hardcover graphic novel. If you want to win this, send an email to easingprizes@gmail.com. Put Muerta in the subject heading. And this is Brian Polito, but the gratuitous boobery is really dialed down for La Muerta compared to Lady Death.
Well, tell them how to spell La Muerta.
Oh, that's
Well, yeah, but some people don't watch; they listen to the show.
Well, then they should listen carefully. You pronounce every letter in Spanish.
That's great. Just lost some more listeners. Thanks. Yeah, it's not in Spanish, is it?
No.
I assume.
Why would it be in Spanish if it's got a Spanish name? I mean, it's American. Everything's American.
I'm sorry, my fault.
Even Italian newspapers are in English, don't you know?
Okay, Josh, thanks for coming, man. Good to see you.
Yes, it's awesome. Bridget, you said you're a musician. What do you play?
I play piano.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, saxophone. But mostly conductor these days.
Wow, so you really know how to play the piano. Like you don't just play like cowboy chords like I know. It's like you actually know how to play.
I do.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great.
Thank
She
you.
writes music. She's got some stuff that you
She's
can
a
listen to on
composer, yeah.
YouTube. It's really nice.
I
Yeah,
do.
that's
I
true.
like
Yeah.
I like to write spooky stuff.
Where it's just online? Is it on Bandcamp? Like, where is it?
YouTube mostly
On
right
YouTube.
now.
Wait, all right.
SoundCloud. Yeah.
Well,
I'll
and she's got a Facebook group, that's, well, you could describe it better than I can, Bridget.
Oh yeah. Haunting Melody Facebook group where we talk about spooky horror music.
Oh my God. I feel like I need to like show you. Can I show you something real fast?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Got to.
Let me
These are
make you
all-
large on the screen here.
No boils.
There we
No
go.
boils.
They're all
Do
horror
not
movie
show us your
soundtracks.
boils.
What are those, Josh?
They're all horror movie soundtracks.
Are those
Oh, that's
LPs?
amazing.
Oh my gosh.
All vinyl.
Wow.
Here, let me show
Nice.
you.
On
Holy moly.
We're talking the original.
Wow.
Very
Nice.
nice.
And like a
Very
lot of originals, like the original Creep Show. And this looks like Society, but it's Nightmare on Elm Street.
Cool,
Oh, it's supposed to
cool.
be like his skin. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's just ton. I'm super into horror soundtracks. And then here
That's awesome.
is
Me
the little
too.
record player I play it on while I write.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'm crazy. I'll write to your haunting melodies. Haunted. Both sides.
Yeah,
So I just got
uh,
this in the mail the other day.
Oh,
let me
sweet.
pin you.
That's
is it?
the vinyl.
Oh yeah,
That's
yeah.
Final.
Nice. That's
Trying to get a
awesome.
better shot of it. Here we go.
That's the HPL audio.
Yeah, it's
drama.
read by the Dunwich Horror read by David McCallum.
Cool.
Very nice.
Is David McCallum the like John Adams dude? Like that dude? Or no?
Yeah,
You know what I'm
in the
talking
Man
about?
from Uncle.
What'd you say?
In The Man from Uncle.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're saying. Okay.
No, it's David McCullough, I think.
Right. Yeah.
Is the John Adams guy, I think.
Oh.
Or
Oh,
John
yeah.
McCullough? David McCullough?
Check this out, guys. Josh.
Yeah.
The fog.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's a good one. That one's got a jump scare in the soundtrack.
Oh my
Yeah.
god.
Sudden
Look, there's
explosion
a
of noise.
center there. Kelly Young sent me this a year or so ago.
Oh, that is awesome.
Yeah,
is
it
cool.
is really, it's one of my favorite movies,
eye.
which
Were
Kelly,
somebody was posting about the fog recently on Twitter, and I'm gonna rewatch it. I haven't seen that in like 20 years or something. But I'm gonna watch that one again. Was it you, Mike, that was talking about it?
it probably was me. Yeah.
Yeah, and somebody did an article where they said, "Oh, it's a Lovecraftian movie," and I'm like, "No."
Oh, that's what, yeah, I posted that. It's not, but I posted it anyway just to get under Pete's skin and Kelly Young's skin. Yeah. It's probably what you saw.
Mission accomplished.
It doesn't
I
take
had to
much,
take
let me
extra
tell you.
heart medication because of that post.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So, Josh, I would imagine that anyone listening, watching, in horror, probably knows who you are. But for those who don't, could you just tell the audience about yourself? You've written a ton of books. You're a musician and so forth.
Yeah, there it is. I've written a ton of books. I'm a musician. I'm in a rock band called the High Strung. This band, we've all been best friends since we were 11 years old, and now we're like 45 and above, and it's kind of like amazing to look around the practice space and like, holy shit, we're still together.
That's
We already
great.
went. I think it's partly because we already went through the whole like, hey, I'm not talking to you for a year in like 8th grade. So like we had like drama when we were young enough to like not know better. So when we got older, it's like we were like, no, we don't need any of that shit.
Yeah.
Like as Chad always says, Derek could take like a baseball bat to his car, and Chad's not leaving this band. So yeah, we had practice yesterday. We got shows coming up, and yes, hi everyone. I'm the author of Bird Box and Daphne and Goblin. I want to list them all. There's 38 of them. Do you mind if I
In a
just list-
black yarn. You can
Spin a
list all
Black
you want.
Yarn.
You're the guest, man.
That is the newest book is Spin a Black Yarn. That came out like a couple of weeks ago, not even.
Yes. There it is. And yeah, there's this. I have the arc. You have the real one, but I do have this.
Oh, sweet, yeah.
Yeah. So I really appreciate you sending that to me and saying it. Josh wrote, Mike, 5 stories for 5 states of mind. Spin a Black Yarn is 5 novellas. Really, really great book.
The very first horror movie I ever saw was Twilight Zone, the movie. And I think that it was such like an ideal introduction to horror, because it was like, I got like the elasticity of the genre immediately. You got the social commentary, You got even the heartstrings with Spielberg, and like horror can be warm or whatever, right?
Right.
And you got my life-changing segment, the Anthony can do, the Joe Dante Anthony can do anything with his mind, the limitless horror. Then you have the creature feature on the airplane and the sweet wraparound. So the very first movie I saw, it was like, hey man, horror can be anything. And I think the second scary movie I saw was Creepshow. And while the moods aren't as they don't vary as much as they do in the Twilight Zone one, it's still smaller segments, unrelated segments. And so I've always just been a fan of obviously Stephen King's like novella collections for that like similar reason.
Yeah.
And I know like we were joking earlier about like the weak link in like a artist's career or something will eventually become like beloved, right? In an anthology movie, like the story, the weak story or something, kind of, it's like lifted by the other stories. There's like a segment that everyone loves, like in Tales from the Dark Side, we all love the dude's wife was the demon thing the whole time. Not to ruin that for anyone. And
Oh
like,
my God, that was my favorite back in the day.
right,
That was my favorite one of
that
those.
segment is so good that you watch the movie a gazillion times, and then you're like, hey, this cat segment's unbelievable, man. And like you didn't really think of it much, maybe the first time around. So there's something fun about that to me too, is it doesn't just give you a chance for variety, it gives you a chance of like someone might like this story now, but this other one later. And
Right.
to have all of that in one either movie or under one umbrella is like freaking thrilling.
That was the one with Radon Chong, that one that you're referring to. That was that the Twilight Zone one, or was that
That was Tales from the Dark Side.
Tales from the Dark Side? That's right. I was trying to remember that. Yeah. Now my wife took my pen. I was gonna write that down. Somebody remind me. I'm an old man. I'm gonna watch that tonight. Yeah, Tales from the Dark Side. It's such a heartbreaking ending, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I remember there was one, I don't know, it was Tales from the Crypt or Tales from the Dark Side, but when we were kids, there was a segment where this little imp thing tells like a young, like a boy, tells him to like keep dreaming, like follow your dreams, whatever. And then the guy like does, and he works like his whole life or whatever. And at times in his life, this imp would show up and be like, keep dreaming, and then he's like this old man that never succeeded. And it was all because this like imp. And even as a kid, I was like, this is like the worst message ever. This whole thing is about this man, quote unquote, wasted his life dreaming. And I remember turning to my parents like, this is awful. Like, it's okay to dream, mom, right?
Right. Your mom was like,
My mom's like, nope, it's not actually. That's why we showed you this, Josh.
Right. She kept
Yeah,
leaving
and then
around
she
the
grabbed a bottle of
brochures for
Percocet
medical
and
school.
Yeah, I got it. Since we're on the subject of the anthology series, I've always thought everybody loves it seems like the favorite of the Twilight Zone is what's the title of that one where after nuclear war he breaks his glasses?
Time Enough at Last.
Time Enough at Last, yeah, because to read and everything. I just always thought that was kind of lame. He
Like-
breaks his glasses. What? There's no solutions anywhere on the entire planet.
That's a good point.
Hey, you'll like this though. Since you like anthology movies, etc. Here's a headline. I talked about this last Sunday, but you weren't here. Amicus Productions. This is on Collider. Amicus Productions rises from the grave with, quote, In the Grip of Terror, horror anthology. The British studio was famous for its anthology films. So it's gonna there's gonna be a new movie, anthology movie by these folks.
Wow,
Yeah.
I did not know that. I was looking up Amicus recently because I was thinking about this subject because it's been a black yarn.
Yeah.
And also a lot of the ones I like don't remember the name of, like some of the Vincent Price ones.
Right.
Like that's what I watch on Halloween. I'll just throw on like almost all anthology horror because anytime you leave the room or come back, it's like a different story's on and you can get into it, whatever, But a lot of those I don't even know the titles of, but a lot of them are Amicus. I know that.
Yeah, absolutely. So they're doing a new one. I just posted the link for you guys, panelists and Josh, if you want to read it now or later or whatever. But yeah, I can't remember when it's coming out, but It says the film will adapt tales by horror authors H.P. Lovecraft, Ambrose Bierce, and E.F. Benson. So those three names, those are
John
exciting to
Langman
me.
and Josh Malerman.
Yeah, this exactly.
I was gonna say public domain favorites.
Yeah, all three authors gave their permission for this to happen. So yeah, it's a little bit cheaper for those guys, isn't it? So talk about horror, but also let's get back to you and your band. How many people are in the band, and where do you tour, and how often do you tour? What's the
Wow,
news on that?
we had a crazy run. I mean, the lineup has changed a bit. It's the same guys, but it went from like 5 to 4 to 3 to 4 to 5.
Right.
People have left and come back and that kind of thing. But we had a real wild run where we were on the road for 6.5 years, where we played about 250 shows a year and didn't live anywhere for 6.5 years. So
How long ago was this?
so this was like 02 to like 09,
Mhm.
around there. And I wrote my first novel in like 04, late 04, when we had a couple months off from the road. And the other songwriter at the time had left the band. And this was sort of like a cut the umbilical cord, like crushing soul moment for me, because I'm like, shit, I like my whole musical life had been writing songs with Mark, right?
Right.
He leaves the band, and probably rightfully so, because we were touring for 250 shows a year for years at the time. And he's like, what the hell are we doing? I'm out of here. So 2 months off, I finally finished a novel. And then that led to writing novels in the passenger seat on the road, because you're thinking like, like we're driving from Denver to Salt Lake City. We've got like 4 hours. I want to write today. Either, Chad's reading, he usually read like music bios. Derek loves to drive. And I'm like, either I look out the window, I get on the phone, or I write right now. So there were years, 3-4 years of writing novels in the passenger seat. I think I wrote 8 or 9 books while like touring the country. And that sounds crazy enough. Now add in the band's listening to the Grateful Dead. Listen, if you can write a scary scene while Jerry Garcia is singing and playing, then you've got it. You've nailed it. Especially the other guy, Bob Weir, sings. And then, so those elements, plus getting drunk every night. And so a lot of the writing sessions were like, whoo, like, gassed and hungover. But it kind of became this thing, almost like a daily workout. Like, hey man, we're driving for 3 hours right now. And eventually my bandmates got me this like pillow desk thing where like, so you can put it on your lap. It was like a pillow with a wood board so I could write on, so the computer wasn't just like on my lap, And yeah, that was totally insane. I don't want anyone out there to picture us playing like, oh my gosh, like stadium. We were probably playing for like 20 people a night average. And it was freaking glorious. We were broke, we were drunk, we're best friends, we're like playing in different city every night. I'm writing novels in the passenger seat, and I would hand them out to the other bands we played with. When I finished, I would like go to Kinko's, and it would be like $30 to like print up a book. And $30 was a lot for us then, but I wanted the other band to have like, I remember I gave Bird Box away to like a bunch of other bands, because that one I finished on Halloween of 06. And so I printed out like a bunch of like, like I'll have people send me photos like, dude, you gave me this years ago on the road, and now it's a movie.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm loving hearing this, because isn't this what life is all about? Money's great, obviously, but that feeling of I'm doing what I was meant to do. I'm doing what makes me happy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
there was a moment I remember turning to Derek. He's the drummer. I remember turning to Derek once and being like, dude, if we break up tomorrow, or if we sell 1 million albums tomorrow, I don't know that we can top what we've done here. I don't know that we can beat this. It started to feel like the United States were like shrinking. It was becoming like a single area, like a single house or something. When you had favorite rooms, like Oxford, Mississippi. I'm a Faulkner fan. Oxford, Mississippi was always thrilling to go to, and Seattle was always phenomenal, and Minneapolis was amazing. And so we had these like pockets we loved, and we tried playing like new cities every time around. And I mean, it was an absolutely electrifying experience. And then somewhere like near the end of that run, we got like a theme song for a TV show. There was a woman who her name's Mira, and she had approached us and said, like, I love this song of yours and other whatever. And she was like, I think that I can get this placed in TV or film. And a few years after we met her and she told us that, she did. And she got us the theme song for if you guys know the show Shameless. That was
Yeah,
on Showtime. That is us.
that is
me,
you.
that's me
Incredible,
and my
man.
best friends. I wrote that song outside of a house party in Georgia. And I remember I grabbed Mark and brought him outside and I'm like, does this sound like Billy Joel? And he's like, no. And I was like, okay, fine. He's like, let's do that one. I'm like, all right, fine, let's do it.
What about Barry Manilow? Does it sound like Barry Manilow?
Are you sure this isn't like Billy Joel? He's like, dude, you don't sound one thing like Billy Joel. Let's play it. Yeah. So, but I don't know if it really matters, but listeners might hear this kind of story and imagine like a punk band or something. And I like punk bands, but we aren't one of those. We never were. But we lived that life. So I almost
Right.
I relate it more to like the beats, the way that we were living, like reading, writing. I'm sure punks read and write too. We were reading and writing and traveling and so broke and just like electric with life. And I still feel that same way about like writing now. You know, I still feel like a pell mell. Like, do we have to be on the road right now? No, but do we have to write another 3 novels in the next 8 months? I don't know where the fuck they're going. Let's go. And I think that my bandmates still feel that way about what they do, like making albums for Bandcamp for no reason. I would love to write a book called For No Reason one time, because I think a lot of young artists and writers, like, my God, there was a period of time where there wasn't views or likes or reviews, and so there was a time where it just like, you're just making it to make it. And I still feel that same thing now.
Yeah, there's a lot of focus with writers and creators of of all stripes. Podcasters too. How many listeners do I have? Or did I win? Did I get nominated for a Stoker or whatever? All that extra stuff is nice, but that can't be why you do it. You got to do it for the joy, right?
Oh yeah.
know?
Yeah. But you know what? Then I read writers, and I feel like everyone here could probably feel this too. Like, I'll read a writer that maybe feels like they're intentionally writing like a hit, like a bestseller. Like, you can kind of feel that vibe, but some are really good at it.
Yeah.
So it's strange. I respect that also, or something.
Yeah.
I'm not in my office like this poser,
I'm not saying that it, if they write with the intention of, I want this to be a hit, that's fine. But are you enjoying it? Do you love it? That's important to me, but it's just, it sounds like it's really important to you as well.
Yeah. You need an award for the best thing that nobody ever read.
Well, I know how Josh started writing his books. He was riding 16 hours, nothing much to do.
Yeah.
You didn't feel much like riding. You just wish the trip was through, right?
Yeah.
Never mind.
Oh my God, somebody shoot me.
Come on, that was good. So are you still, what is your schedule now with the band before we get to the horror stuff? What's going on now?
We released an album this year called Address Unknown. That was kind of new. I play piano on that one, Bridget. I play but nothing like what you're describing, but it's more like and anyway. So yeah, and I barely touched the guitar in the whole thing. And again, you can relate that back to the elasticity of the storyteller or the genre. Like, I don't care what I play on our album. Let's just make another album, And I don't really care if it sounds like the last one or anything like that. So we have a show coming up, and we have shows coming up, and we've been practicing regularly at my house. And Mark said something kind of funny, and he has a tendency to be able to distill conversations into one sentence. And we were all talking about, like, why did this album go the way it went and whatever. And Mark's like, I think it's just because Josh moved into a house with a piano.
That's great.
Yeah.
Where can people go to find out information on, on the music stuff, on the band, and where you're going to be playing, and current albums, previous albums, and so forth?
There's like a Bandcamp page and Instagram. We're called The High Strung, which is a name that I've disliked for forever, but the boys all still love it, so we go with it. Instagram, Twitter, everything,
Spotify. Can they look up
Yep. Oh yeah, for sure. And then
Unstrung on Spotify, for example?
Yep, the High Strung HIGH. Yep.
Okay. And what about dates, touring dates and all that?
We're only the shows we have are all like in Michigan, and one's coming up at this like this awesome haunted mansion called the Whitney here in Detroit. I'm like just outside of Detroit. I don't know if viewers or viewers know that, but if anyone's seen the movie 8 Mile, 8 Mile is the border of Detroit, and I live at 13 Mile. That means I've lived 5 miles outside of Detroit. Very linear.
Well, I've been wanting to get you on the podcast for a while, and then it hit me again when you posted something on Facebook a month or two ago. You wrote, "Wrap the nonfiction book, my first. I'd love to do a podcast, talk about the infinite differences between this experience and all others I've known. The book details one profound night shortly after getting a book deal for Bird Box, in which all major life backdrops were present, an unplanned council of huge thoughts and feelings. Woke up the next day and told Allison I could fill a whole book with what we'd experienced the night before, and now 10 years later I have." And so I sent you an email saying, well, if you'd love to get on a podcast and talk about this, let's do it. And so let's talk about that, and let's talk about horror books and whatever you'd like to talk about first. And I assume you know this Langan person?
I do.
John, do you want to start with any questions, or do you want me to keep going?
Oh, I have questions.
I'll bet you do.
No, so Josh, I'm kind of like, you alluded to watching the Twilight Zone film with your folks, and you've probably said this at some point in the past, and I'm just, my old brain is forgetting it. But so what was the impetus to go to like in a horror direction in particular? You know what I mean? Like, was it watching those films, or was it reading Stephen King, or what was it that led you that way?
No, it definitely was watching those movies. It was, I mean, I felt like I'd fallen in love that first one. I was like, huh, this is it. This, whatever this is, I want to spend more time here. I feel like I still sort of, there's almost an Arrested Development that I cherish about this experience, which is that I still get scared, at least for the duration of the movie, or even a step further, I believe it for the duration of a movie, novel, whatever it is. And the great ones, you kind of believe after still, for a while, right? And so there's something, like almost, I don't want to say childish, but inherently childish about believing The Exorcist when you watch it, like being afraid of a demon in the house, right? And I think that there's almost like a fountain of youth aspect of horror, because every time I watch a movie, I'm like in my office, like scared out of my fucking mind. I gotta like yell Allison's name to hear her respond, so I feel okay, all right, everything's still grounded, And there's something youthful about that, rather than me sitting here like, oh, this is all effects and phony, and there is no God or demons, and whether I believe those things regularly or not. And so the sort of the mystery of it, or how about this, the suggestion that there's more, right, of horror and experiencing that, like from the word go, that thrilled me. Because I'm sure you've heard other people say, like, what's more optimistic than seeing a ghost, right? Because it implies there's more. And so for someone who cherishes existence, the idea of more is really thrilling. And so horror gives me that. And that may sound like a really bright take on a dim, dark genre, but it thrills, it electrifies me in that way, and has since word one.
Right. So one of the things I love listening to interviews with you for is like, you have these takes on, hey, what if we did this? What if we did that? What if I wrote this kind of novel? What if I wrote that kind of story? And I feel like for a lot of writers, that's one of the questions that, or I don't know, challenges maybe that you confront once you've been doing this for a while, is how do you keep it fresh? How do you keep it loose, right? You've got 5 novellas, and they're all very different from one another. And you decide, you know what, I'm going to write this giant horror novel, and okay, I'll do that. And then you're like, I want to write a slasher now. So how is it that you keep it fresh for yourself? Is that something you feel has become almost a habit? Is that something you make a conscious effort? Is it a mix of the two?
I think that I almost have to look to like the music side of things. It seems that every time, or the few times maybe we've gone into like a real studio, it's immediately followed with like the most lo-fi, let's record something on the tape recorder we can. And I don't know if that's like reactionary in the same way that actual movements in music are, like punk to disco to, you know what I mean? Like or prog rock to punk, whatever. There's that similar thing happens just inside me when I'm like, okay, all right, we just made a real glossy album here. Let's make the craziest fucking thing we can. And then, but you make one or two of those and you're like, man, I want to write a hit. So I think there is some sort of natural up and down about that with the books too, where to me, I'm looking at the ones on the shelf. To me, Daphne, Bird Box, those seem like fastballs to me. Like these are straight shots of like cold horror. They're just like, here's a fastball. Okay. And just want almost to remind myself, you could throw it straight over the plate, but I happen to love the knuckleball of Ghoul in the Cape and Unburied Carol and like the more colorful, like expansive, like kind of thing. But I cherish both, and I like both in other writers too. I like the Hemingway versus Faulkner, and I love both their styles cannot be more different than they are, and I'm enamored with both. So the thing that has crossed my mind though, in relation to what you're asking, is that people have said to me now, wow, none of your two books seem the same. If you put Carol next to Bird Box, I wouldn't know it was the same author. And sometimes I worry what that means. I'm like, oh man, is this something? Am I missing out on some sort of like freaking like uniformity here, like someone can relate to, a voice that someone's comfortable and with every time? But then the real worry for me is like, what if you run out of differences? What if you run out of like, and suddenly now all your books are starting to feel the same? That's scarier to me than missing out on some sort of like brand,
Right.
Like running out of directions or Laffy Taffy elasticity, So
yeah.
I don't know if it's intentional. I will say one more thing though. I've written 38 books and they're not coming out in order. It's kind of we're like, do I write a new one? Or my manager Ryan Lewis would be like, what about this book of my Marbles? We'll put that one. Well, Marbles was written in 2015. I mean, that's like 8 years ago now. If that one comes out next, that's just going to feel nothing like Spin a Black Yarn naturally, because it was written 8 years ago. So there are 25 other novels in this crate behind this computer. And so to put one of those out, it's almost like naturally we're shaking shit up, whether I meant to or not. So there's that.
Right. What that's maybe not a fair question to ask, but like, what is something that what are some things you think of that you haven't done, but you think, oh man, this really excites me, like slashers are having a moment, right? And with Stephen Graham Jones in particular, right? And with a bunch of other people too, but it seems to me that Stephen's kind of leading the charge on that one. Great, this is the slasher moment. And it's like, and I find myself thinking, because that's totally not what I would do. But I think to myself, how would you do a slasher? How would you do a slasher in a way that, that pleases you or works for you? So are there any things like that where you find yourself thinking, man, I've never written, a demonic possession novel. I've never written The Exorcist, but man, how would I do that? What's a Josh Malerman exorcism? Or, or The Creature from the Black Lagoon, or take your pick.
One thing that I would love to pull out, like, are you guys Larry McMurtry fans?
Yeah.
So I'm new to this dude. Like, I've just read 4 of his books in the last like 2 months, and I'm like crazy about him. And I read a book called Leaving Cheyenne that was so good. And it's a relationship drama first, and then it's a Western. Yeah. And I would love to like somehow pull that off in the horror space where it's like a legitimate, like Annie Hall, like we're legitimate relationship complex drama and a horror story, rather than a horror story first and there's like family problems in the background or whatever. I would love to somehow pull that off, and I can sense what that means, but I don't know that I can articulate what that means like right now. You know what I mean? But,
no,
but that is
yeah.
something that I think about. I'm like, can you give me like a great, you know, how like La La Land ends and you're like, oh fuck, they don't end up together, and it's like gut wrenching, or that movie Once, that musical where they don't end up together. I'm ruining all these movies for everyone. Like, and it's like, and it's just like a hole in your soul. Like, I would love to write a horror novel that ends that way, where the hole isn't the monster left it, it's the couple didn't work out. Or
Somewhere in
whatever.
Time. Not that it's horror.
Yeah, Somewhere in Time's great. Yeah.
I love
Yeah,
the
well,
film, and I
right.
love
They've
the
succeeded.
book.
They've succeeded in defeating the monster, the supernatural menace, whatever it is, but it cost them their relationship or something like
Yeah.
that.
They're like, yeah, we're not together. And then, and if there's a way where that's what someone walks away with, but it still makes it in the genre or something, because I just do feel like horror is home, you know? So to like totally, I just don't even know that could naturally step out of the genre entirely. I just don't think that I could do that. Like, it would feel so freaking weird to me or something.
Yeah. I know what you mean. There are certain kinds of plots where you think to yourself, how does this work in a horror context? You know, there are certain plots that seem like natural kinds of, you know, mystery kinds of plots or whatever, seem like they work in a horror setting really well, or noir kinds of plots. But what about a romance plot? Can you make a romance plot work in a horror situation?
Well, I mean, there's no question that Fisherman succeeds in the emotional impact, like, is what you walk away with bigger than the horror story. There's no question about it.
Well,
and I think that I would, that's no coincidence that everyone freaking is enamored with that book, and that it's true that it's the emotional impact that's biggest. So that's like a goal or a fantasy of mine, is to pull off that same sort of emotional impact that you did in The Fisherman.
I don't know, man. I think Ghoul in the Cape is a pretty majestic achievement. I mean, you know, and it's funny too. This is more just like sort of weird commentary, but I mean, there's a part of me that thinks that what the writers that I grew up reading, and this is, I mean, people like King and Straub and that sort of stuff, Ramsey Campbell, like, what they did was they took the kind of horror stuff, H.P. Lovecraft, Richard Matheson, and then they mashed it together with something else. In King's case, it was a lot of American naturalism. It was Dreiser, it was John D. MacDonald. In Straub's case, it was like Henry James and Iris Murdoch. And that kind of mashing together of those two crazy things created their stuff, you know. So it's yes, it's horror, but it's also, or it sort of expands what horror can be. My younger son he's just off to college. He's starting his junior year. He's a musician. He's a SUNY Purchase. And I was talking to a friend about him the other day, and I was saying, you know, they were saying, well, what kind of music does he like? And I said, well, he's a big fan on the one hand of like AC/DC and Black Sabbath, and on the other hand of like Townes Van Zandt. And they were like, wow, what is that going to create when that sort of smashes against itself? And maybe, you know, like reading Larry McMurtry. So I wonder, is this part of it, right? Is that as a writer, you need to keep, you know, you keep reading and you keep, oh, Larry McMurtry. Yeah, I've heard a lot about this guy. Let me check him out. Holy cow, he's amazing. And then that's like this sort of injection, you know, as a musician, right? You're trying to listen to new stuff, new styles of music, new bands, and you try to remain open to that, I guess, right? Because I feel like you do that particularly well.
Well, thank you. In our early days, the band, I didn't know what, and I don't know if anyone here does know what palm muting is. You guys know what that is with palm muting? Okay, on the guitar. So, I mean, essentially it's when you're playing, but you're not playing the full open chord. You're muting it here. So it's more like, right? And I didn't know how to do that. And this guy in this other band, I asked him, I was like, how are you doing that? He's like, you don't know how to palm mute? I'm like, no. Like, so he taught me. And our next album, like 8 of the 10 songs have palm muting on it. And that's a similar thing here. Like, I'm not gearing up to write like a Western like Larry McMurtry, but the relationship side of what I'm reading in every one of his books, yeah, I want to do that. And someone who had a huge effect on me in this way was Philip Roth, where I was like, oh man, if I can somehow, as you're saying, mash up the horror sensibility with this dude's like Jewish neurotic energy, then all my people will adore me. or they'll hate me.
Well, the thing with Roth, right, is that every novel, not every novel, but every few novels, he's like, what if I wrote a novel this way?
Yep.
And you know, and so it just keeps, you know, and then like later in his career, he's like, you know what, it's time for me to write some big fat kind of quasi historical things. So he does that, but like he's always trying to kind of keep it both emotionally true and also kind of interesting, I guess, for himself as a writer.
Yeah, yes. Have you read which one? Oh, The Ghostwriter.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And I mean, that's knocking on, I wouldn't say it's horror at all, but it's you can see the avenue from something like that to horror. And you're like, because I think a lot of the time with like Jewish stories or Jewish like horror, like I kind of answers your question from before as well. I would love to write like The Jewish Exorcist, right? But it seems like what they're doing, what I think is being done wrong is everything's so Jewish. Like we're down, like it has to be like a Jewish ritual or like the you know, like the Orthodox Jew. No. It could just be like a Jewish dude. Like I'm Jewish. I was just born that way. It doesn't have to be like all of a sudden I'm wearing a yarmulke and like, you know, it's like carrying a, you know, like every scene battling a demon with a Torah in my hand, right? So it's like there's a way to do this, man, where it's like modern and it's how we do things, but it's a Jewish like side of it rather than the cross and the demon's face, right? And
yeah,
so
no, there's it's the problem, right, with exorcism narratives is that the Catholic thing, it's so cinematic, right? It works.
Yeah.
The theater of it is so good that it's difficult. That there's a great kind of low budget movie called is it The Last Exorcism, I think, which is about a guy who is a fraud. He's like a kind of, you know, Baptist kind of like preacher, and he conducts exorcisms, but it's all a hoax. And it's a found footage thing where he's being interviewed by this film crew because he's decided he's tired of living a lie and he wants to just come clean and just show them how everything is done. And then of course what happens is halfway through it turns out there's a real demon that he has to deal
dude,
with.
I'm gonna watch this. Sounds great. Is it great?
But
it's really good.
It's really good. Don't watch The Last Exorcism 2.
I've heard the sequel is pretty bad.
Is it The Last Exorcist or The Last Exorcism?
The Last Exorcism, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
It's one of those films that manages to do there's a Korean exorcism film called The Wailing, I think, which is fantastic, which sort of brings together a sort of shamanistic traditional Korean exorcism with a Catholic exorcism, and that's just so different and so, but you know, culturally it's just not something that you see. So I think there are things like that can be done. But yeah, what do you, I think the Catholic thing becomes this kind of default thing, and in some ways I kind of think that's cool because it's like, okay, it's being extremely constricted. It's like, how do you write a good haiku or something like that? And you've got to follow all these rules. And so how do you do that and make it fresh? But I also think it would be really interesting, you know, what happens if you're, you know, culturally Jewish, but not particularly devout. And then this thing happens and you're like, oh, you know,
so
what
John, have you seen the movie The Old Ways? You would really like it because it's about an exorcism. This girl is basically an American girl of Mexican descent, and she gets caught up in this. It's about an exorcism, but they use Aztec methods.
Oh, wow.
Josh, is writing this down. Just want to say to Josh, if you listen to this show or watch the show every week, you'll be writing down a lot of things.
Yeah.
So if you want a different approach to exorcism, give that one a go.
I never really thought about that, what you said, John, but it should be obvious, right? The default seems to be, you know, Catholic, you know, in films and movies and stories.
Yeah. And you know,
the reason is because that iconography is ancient and everybody knows it in the Western world.
There's a church. Allison's from like the deep Upper Peninsula, Michigan's Upper Peninsula. And whenever we drive up there, usually it's later at night by the time we get up there. And there's this one church with this giant cross like on the side of it, and it's like backlit with blue light, and so you're like, I mean, it's like the ultimate like werewolf church that you're talking about at night. And like And so I'm having this talk with you. I want to write the Jewish, and then I'm like, I gotta fucking make a movie about this church, man. It's like addictive or something. It's like this perfect iconography in this horrifying way. Yeah.
Have you or Allison read a detective series? First book is called A Cold Day in Paradise.
I have not.
Oh, Steve Hamilton. Yeah,
Steve Hamilton. It's set what in the 90s, right? That's when they were, I think, John.
Started in the 90s. He wrote like, I don't know, 7 or 8 of them, maybe something like that.
Yeah,
he's still working.
Set.
He lives locally. Yeah.
Yeah, the guy owns like 6 cabins, and he's like a private detective part-time. Anyway, you made me think of the series when you said that your wife's from the Upper Peninsula.
Yeah, they're super quick reads. I had the guy, God, 20 years ago, I had the guy visit my class. We read that first novel, and he was a really nice guy. And he just he was an IBMer, and he took like a few weeks. He always wanted to write, and he took a few weeks off to write, and he couldn't come up with anything, and he was like, he felt like a failure, and so he was like, wait, that's where I'm going to start. And so his protagonist feels like a failure because he's like a police officer who was like shot up, and he left the force.
He's got a bullet like in an inch from his heart. That's
was that it? Yeah, okay, yeah. And it was a series that got better as they went. Like they're the kind of books that you could read in an afternoon. And just as he kind of grew into the character, I remember like the 5th one. I don't know why I remember that, but the 5th one was really just terrific. He's done other things since then, but the Alex Knight, is that the name of him?
Alex McKnight.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah, I know this is off topic, but I love that. I'm from Iowa, which isn't that far north, but that winter setting, and one person describes where he lives as on the edge of the world, so. But anyway, and I want to go back to what you were saying again off topic, but you mentioned The Fisherman and John's work. It seems like to me, I don't know if it's just me, but of course the Fisherman is not a new book. What is it, about 8 to 10 years old, John?
Something it was like 2016, so
2016.
Going on 8 years. Yeah.
It seems like to me, and I've been thinking this for the last few weeks, that The Fisherman is having another moment. Yeah, everywhere I look, somebody's mentioning The Fisherman, or they're comparing it to this book was great, kind of like The Fisherman, if you've read that, or I just see it over and over. And
it cost a lot of money to get those bribes. That was a lot in bribes. Yeah.
I mean,
I just would say to anyone out there, Josh is our guest, and I want to talk to, but anyone out there who's not read The Fisherman, seriously, you're missing out. You really
I was so moved by that book that I wrote John after, and John and I never like talked on the phone before. And I was like,
we just talked to each other. Yeah,
I was like,
can
I call you right now just to talk about this book? He was like, yeah.
I promise I'm not a stalker.
No, but that's how moved I was by that book. I was like, I need to talk to this dude like right now about this.
The thing is, though, there were all these writers, I feel like right now, like Josh, like Paul Tremblay, like Laird, like Victor Laval, like Stephen Graham Jones, who have accumulated now this really impressive body of work, and people are still catching up to it. You know what I mean? Right. Like they're like, oh yeah, Malerman, isn't he the Bird Box guy? Or Tremblay, isn't he the Head Full of Ghosts guy? And it's like, yes, absolutely read those, but there's so much else, and I'm kind of waiting. I may have to do it myself, but like I'm kind of waiting for somebody to Neil McRobert or someone like that to talk about that. Like I was at an event last year, and the Westport Library Festival, and I was doing this panel, and Ellen Datlow, is interviewer talking with me and Paul and Stephen and Bracken McLeod and maybe Al Makatsu. And like I suddenly had this thought, like as we like walk up onto the stage, I'm like, damn, we're all old. And I'm like, we're not like old. We're not like the old guys, but we're not the new guys anymore. Like the new guys were all there. It was like Rachel Harrison and Clay McLeod Chapman and Eric LaRocca. Like there is this new horror group, and that's fantastic. So what does that make us? It makes us like just we're not the new guys or the old guys. We're just like the guys or the people or the folk or whatever.
Well, you're the old guy, but the other guys you're talking about, no. not so much.
Yeah, but
Look in the mirror, my friend. Look in the mirror.
so there was this. I walked into a Barnes and Noble in around 2005, and it's like, they have that section. It's like authors we love and emerging writers. And it's like, oh yeah, read the new emerging writer Joe Lansdale.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm
right.
like, I've been reading Joe since the 80s.
The other thing I
And-
wanted to say about John is
How incredibly handsome I am. I know.
thank you.
That's,
I could not have put it better.
That's
We'll be doing more horror reviews, book reviews, movies, whatever, on the Lovecraft Easing blog / website,
Yeah, I owe you
lovecrafteasing.com.
too.
And Cody Lakin just wrote a review for me of John Langan's House of Windows. So check out that review.
It's a lovely
the
review.
Lovecraft Easing
I'm very
website.
grateful.
Yeah. And
though,
Cody is the author of The Family Condition. He'll be on in a month or two.
That is a terrific book. He is a terrific writer. If you haven't read The Family Condition, that is so good.
Yeah.
He's done some other stuff too, and other or maybe I get Cody and Michael Seidlinger confused, and I don't know why that is, because they're both young and talented, I suppose. But
yeah, I've heard that old people look at a lot of young people, and they just all look.
they're all just like, oh.
But yeah, a really lovely review by Cody Lakin. If you've check out the review, and if you've not read House of Windows, I hope that persuades you. Again, sorry, Josh, but I just wanted to.
No, but the thing is, like you should be going to Josh's catalog, right? You should be finding a copy of Ghoul in the Cape, which is just it's just insane. And what's great about it is that it's like this big giant, like it's, you could say like an 80s throwback, but that sounds so reductive. But I just mean like one of those novels like you used to get from King or Straub or McCammon or Dan Simmons at one point, where it's like everything went into that. It was just like, I'm going to write a novel that is the world, like, and you can find everything in there. And that's, I mean, I'm sort of fixating on that one, but like all the rest of them, it's like, hey, let me just try. How about a slasher with basketball? What if we do that? Or what if we have this weird place where boys and girls are raised apart from each other? How would that work? And his work puts into practice what he's talking about in terms of horror being just capacious. You can do whatever you want. It's not like, better have a zombie in there. Sure, you want to do a zombie story, that's awesome. But you want to do a horror range war, you can absolutely do that. Why not?
So Josh, what started all this is you really wanted to talk about the process of, I'm looking at your text again, your post again, of the quote infinite differences between this experiences and all others I've known. I think you're talking about writing nonfiction versus writing fiction. So I'm not even sure what to ask, but I know you want to talk about this. So
yeah, like for a while now, and I don't mean this like to cast shade on anybody who does love Twitter or whatever, but I just don't really like speak that language, right? I don't. And from the word go with Twitter and some other things, I've just felt like if this was a party, I would have probably turned to Allison and be like, let's go next door. Like I just don't really speak Twitter. I just don't. And so, okay. So then, but I do have the desire to express how I feel about like writing or these kind of things. And it seems to me that Twitter is like either a permanent opinion or a declaration. And I just don't really operate that way. It's way more machine gun language, and some of it sticks and I change my mind on half of it, or I'm easily persuadable, whatever. So I've been looking for other ways to talk about like how I think about writing and the genre and these kind of things. And there are two things that have come to mind recently. One was, hey man, instead of like TikTok or something like that, like why don't you film a documentary of yourself writing a novel? Because if we can get like a feature presentation of the arc of writing a novel. So we open with the audience knows everything I know. That includes the ending, because if they don't know everything I know, then they're just watching me write or get through something. But if you want to experience writing the book, then you need to know like literally everything I know. So I filmed that. I filmed a full documentary. There's 50 something hours. It's being edited right now. It's
That is awesome.
yeah, oh my God, it was intense, man. The very first day, I've been talking about this for a few years, and like a few books ago, I was like, okay, I'm gonna document. This is the one. And then I sat down and I'm like, dude, come on, man. Like writing a book is so much work. I'm not fucking making this movie. And so I said, forget it. And then the next book, I went through the same thing. And then the next book, finally, I'm like, I'm doing it. I'm freaking doing it. And I got the camera set up. I'm in the office. I'm ready to start. And I go in the other room and I said to Allison, I'm like, dude, I actually don't know what to do. I don't know what to say right now. And then she was like, oh my God, just be yourself. And I'm like, who is that? like, what are you talking about? She's like, all the things that you've been wanting to talk about for 3 years. Here's your chance, man. And I'm like, I felt like I was in a Twilight Zone. Time enough at last. And I can't even think of one thing to say. So the first 2 days were like that, like just real self-conscious, odd. And then it just kind of turned on me where I was like, no, really, like, none of this has to stick. This is just like a rough draft, right? None of this has to stick. This is all raw. Let's go. And I got so into this that I started to get so excited for when the writing session was done to like talk about it with the camera or whatever it was. So that was one way that I wanted to like do this or express this more than like Twitter, right? Hello. The other way was a nonfiction book. So 10 years ago, Allison and I were like just falling in love. And I met Allison, and then like 3 months later, I got a book deal. And this is after years of living on the road, being broke. And then, as I said before, loving every second of all that. But then I meet Allison at a show of ours. And then like 3-4 months later, a book deal for Bird Box. I was like, what is going on? I just fell in love. And now this felt like numerous things were going the right way at once. You can imagine, right?
Yeah.
In those days, she told me she had never seen Evil Dead. And I was like, oh yeah, we gotta watch Evil Dead together. You know, I'll show you, blah, blah, blah. So she told I told her cousin, did you know Allison hasn't seen Evil Dead? And her cousin's this real like Michigan dude and stuff, you know, and he's dating, or I can't remember if he was married or dating. So he was seriously dating this girl. So Allison and I go over to his house to watch Evil Dead. What we didn't realize was like, we're like in the like every other word is baby, like is, you know, how like every other word is Smurf, right? For like we're in like the full-on baby stage. And like, hey baby, do you need some more ice, baby? Oh God, I love you, baby. God, you look good, baby. You've never seen this movie, baby? And then like, and these two were on, literally it was their last night together, her cousin and his girlfriend, like arguing like Virginia Woolf in front of us. I mean, who's afraid of Virginia Woolf? Like in front of us. And so these polar opposites, young love, dying love, and in the middle of it all, this absolute gem, Evil Dead. Now tag on getting drunk and high, which I don't smoke grass that often. It kind of makes me like inward. But we're getting like high and drunk, and these two are arguing, and Allison is like watching this movie and saying things about the movie. It turned into like her showing me the movie. She's talking about it like it's like a moving work of art. It's this dark painting, and everything that she's saying about it is what I love about the genre. It was just this massive night that we had to sleep over there. We were so wasted. And I think that's the last night those two hung out, her cousin and her. But the next morning I was like, Allison, man, I could write a whole novel about it. It was everything: love, life, death, divorce, breakup, art, horror. Like it was all present in this night. Oh, also, I got this book deal, but Bird Box wasn't out yet. So there were like the fears of like, I guess kind of the fears of like, either does this do well, does it not do well? All of a sudden I'm like, do I have to watch what I say online? Like all these like fucking thoughts all at once, right. You know? And so the book is called Watching Evil Dead. And it's just one night where Allison and I were just, you've had nights like this yourselves. I'm sure everyone here has, where you don't have to be like on vacation. You don't have to be in Key West or on a roller coaster or jumping out of an airplane. And it's an unbelievably like peaked experience where all of life's like major backdrops were present that night. And it could be just like a dinner with your dad. And this happened to be watching a movie with her cousin.
That is incredible. When will the book be out?
So I'm rewriting a book called Incidents Around the House. I'm rewriting that as we speak. And then the second I'm done with that, I'm going to rewrite Watching Evil Dead. And one of the beauties of writing two things that are so different is I feel like that's going to be a reasonable transition, you know, to go from fiction and nonfiction versus I can't imagine rewriting a second novel right after this one. But the thing that was freaky about it, and you tell me if any of you have experience with this, was like, even, I mean, Mallory might be the closest person to me I've ever written. Mallory from Bird Box and from Mallory. But that she can say things that I don't see the world as, right? Okay, of course, right? So, but when I started writing this nonfiction book, same exact thing. Those first few days were like, oh shit, like, who am I? And it's like there were those like few days of abject horror of like, wait a minute, this is nonfiction. Every single fucking opinion you have has better be yours. Like it better be like real. And again, it doesn't have to be declarative. It doesn't have to be permanent, but just at least make sure that this is you and you're not trying to be hip. You're not trying to be funny. You're not trying to be cool. If you are hip, if you are funny, good for you. But don't wear a cloak here. Like this is you describing this night, just like I'm describing it to you right now, but hopefully with a little more breath between sentences.
Also, and this is going to sound like a joke, but it's not meant that way. I'm thinking about the courage to watch Evil Dead while high. You know, I don't know. I'd feel like the characters are coming out of the screen.
It was kind of freaky because there was this hallway. So like the TV's here, and then this hallway next to it, this dark hallway down there. So like if I had to get up to go to the bathroom, I think I peed outside. I was like, I got to go to the bathroom, and I just go outside. And they're like, "Where's he going?"
I mean, it's one thing. It's one thing to do it. It's one thing to watch it drunk. That's way different. But to watch it high, it's like I'm paranoid. I'm really paranoid.
No, I think like going outside too, when there's all those scenes, you know, the thing coming through the
no doubt.
Like, that is not. I think I would have chosen like the kitchen as a reasonable alternative or something like that. It has a sink, you know.
Right when I was sitting may have been best. I don't even know that anyone else would have noticed. I mean, it was that kind of. This was a peaked night, man, and I wrote the whole thing. I have the rough draft right here. I haven't even told anybody what it was called or anything, so we just did that.
Wow, so I'm honored. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Josh, has anybody on that night read what you've written?
No, including Allison. So the rough draft was only back when I was you saw that tweet. It wasn't this long ago now.
Yeah.
No, I'm a little nervous about that because obviously I didn't use their real names or anything. And it's in a strange way, though. They're both like really, despite the Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf nature of these two. And then I guess that makes Allison and I the quote unquote like naive young couple, like Honey and who come over like, we're going to drink with them. This will be wonderful. And but despite that angle on them, I think it's pretty actually flattering. The two of them kind of come off like witty, let's say acerbic rather than mean.
So I tell this great story of, and Mike has me tell about how I stole my grandmother's car to go see Reanimator.
Oh yeah.
And I do this really long bit about it, but in the end, what I've discovered is that there's significant false memories involved in that story.
Oh.
And every time you remember something, you're actually remembering the memory of it.
Right. Can you imagine if if her cousin saw this and then was like, dude, we watched Nightmare on Elm Street. No.
Have you seen a series? Have you seen a series about 10, 12 years ago? It was just 1 or 2 seasons, but it was called October Road. And it's about this writer who he lives in this small town. He's not a writer when he lives in the small town, grows up in the small town, goes away, lives in New York City in this tiny, crappy apartment and writes a story about the town, everybody. And not everybody's in a good light or anything. And then he gets invited back to the town to give a speech at the college or something. And he sticks around for a while, and a lot of people are pissed at him about it. So it not that yours is anything like that, but it made me think of it, and it might be something you guys might be interested in watching. It's been a while since I've seen it, but it's really cool little series.
But I'll tell you, it did cross my mind, that stuff, you know. I mean, you know, a lot of it is natural. I think when you, I don't know what someone would have thought if you like, okay, when I said I was writing a nonfiction book, like, I guess, Mike, what did you, anything cross your mind what it would be about? Were you thinking it must be about horror novels or something? Like, what did you, or nothing crossed your mind about it?
No, what really crossed my mind more than anything was how excited you were to talk about the process or what it was about, and I felt, maybe I'm wrong, the differences between writing this nonfiction book as opposed to all the fiction that you've written. Those were the things that really hit my mind.
Okay, yeah. And like, I think that someone who doesn't know or whatever might think like, oh, I did a book with a bunch of research. No, like, no, just a drunk high book. But it's like, but there's a lot of like thinking about like things like, okay, you just got a book deal. Like, what do you deserve now? Like, do you think that you deserve success here? Do you think you don't? Do you think like these kind of things? What does an artist deserve? Well, a major thread of the book is that the artist deserves just the work of art. And if he or she does it enough, well, shit, man, he deserves to do a great one. If he puts in like all the time, like you did, yes, I feel like I do deserve to like write a classic, yes, but that doesn't mean deserve awards or money or this like thing. But the actual, because if you're putting all this energy and time and thought and whatever it is, wind into writing, yeah, then maybe you do deserve something awesome. At the very least, you deserve a finished book. Anything on top of that can start to get shaky. I deserve an award. I deserve a bigger book deal. I deserve to be talked about or on this list or whatever it is. And I think it's natural for any of us, even those of us who are doing well or those of us who are not or whatever, to think like it'll cross your mind. If you see like a list of like top 30 horror novels since 2000 and you're like, Bird Box isn't on there? Like, it crosses your mind and you're like, you almost like slap yourself. Like, what are you doing right now? You got what you deserved from Bird Box when you finished it. And you now, for the rest of your life, have the confidence and the swagger, the pep of having written this book, whether or not you even got a book deal for it. And so a lot of the book is that side of things, you know, and like thinking about, oh boy, I have a book deal, like strap in, what does this mean? And it's like, well, you're already there. You wrote this book. That's the finish line. You wrote the book. So that is the bulk of the book are thoughts like that. And that's all the things I was thinking about that night.
Where you have Allison like look it over to see, you know, you're remembering this wrong,
Yep.
you're remembering this right, or you forgot about this, that kind of thing.
I even wrote the whole thing, and because I know that after we watched Evil Dead 1, we watched 2, and then the remake of 1. And this was all in
Okay.
one. You can imagine how blurry the remake was to us, right? Or the last movie we watched. So I tell Allison this. I mean, like, to me, the last movie was just like eyes, music, like a couple eyes looking from somewhere, music. And Allison told me, she's like, no, that wasn't the order. It was Evil Dead, the remake, and then part 2. I was like, oh shit, I just wrote the whole book in this order.
That's great.
Yeah.
So when do we get to read it, approximately?
I don't know. I told my agent about it already, and she seemed interested, but I'm not sure what she's gonna make of this. You know, like a philosophical romp, really. I don't know what she's gonna make of it. She might love it. She may, I don't know. But I do know that when I send her the rewrite, her and I are gonna bring it out, like shop it from there. So I don't know.
Quite honestly, I can't imagine a lot of writers and readers being interested in hearing about this process, this point in your life. You know, that's just me, but and the excitement that you obviously have for it and bring to it, you know. So anything else on this that you want to cover that maybe I don't know to ask or talk about or whatever?
I mean, this is a boring subject to me. I'll just talk about for 1 second. Is that I'm just naturally adverse to research. I'm just not in. I don't like. I'm not. I don't know about y'all, but I don't like. Whenever there's like a, one of my favorite things about horror is that it seems like the hard sci-fi. Let's say like the sun died, right? And like the hard sci-fi would be the explanation of like the inside of it dying and how long it took the light to reach the planet and like what would happen, like how quickly things were freezing or whatever the hell it was. But one of the things I love about horror is I can just write the world went dark. And like
Hand wave.
I'm sort of like anything that impedes momentum freaks me out a little. So I've never been much of a researcher. So writing a nonfiction book while being a little adverse to that is probably not the wisest thing. So I think showing Allison, maybe even showing those other two, because I definitely still am in contact with her cousin, maybe even sitting down with them and being like, how did you see that? How did you see that night? Might be like wise for me to do.
But that might make a great addendum to the book. Like, this is how I saw that night.
That's true.
Period.
Yeah.
Here are the comments I got back about from the other 3 people who say
That's a great idea.
Shit.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. I almost feel like that should, but like addendum, but it should be in the book.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah.
Like
Epilogue type thing.
Whoever's like, Josh Malerman got everything wrong.
No, that is, dude, that's okay. I'm writing that down. And no mention of that, like none from me throughout. It's not like, oh, but he'll tell you what he thinks. Like, no. It's like in and of itself, it's done. And then the addendum at the end is Allison, him, her saying what that is.
Yeah.
I'm right.
This is this is the Mandela moment, right? This is how I remembered it. And
I love this idea. I'm doing this.
Yeah, that's brilliant, Pete. Seriously.
Yeah.
There's a reason why he's on the show. So.
Yeah, but then he relates it back to Herbert West.
Yeah, well, everything relates back to Herbert West with
not everything relates.
I'm kidding.
Thank God. You know what? I write this story.
It's 6 degrees of separation from Herbert West, and you know it.
Okay, so I wrote one story and then I wrote another. It's like so I've written like 16 Herbert West stories. It's not like I'm obsessed.
What was your last book about?
What was my last book about? Actually, it was about Walter Gilman.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, but seriously, that is a great idea to have them. No, Josh is wrong about this, or I'd like to add to what Josh. Yeah, that's wonderful.
Yeah, that is badass. I've never seen something like that. You've seen someone react to something, right? Or like an interview or blah, blah, blah. But to actually have it in the book.
Right.
It's brilliant. I love it.
Hey.
So, but he was.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
But Josh was talking about, I forget. Never mind. But one of the things that about being daring and whatnot, and I think one of the most daring things in both the book and the movie is of Bird Box is not showing the monster.
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
There was a moment, like a third of the way through that book where I was like, okay, well, eventually we're gonna have to. I'm like, no. And then like halfway through, I'm like, well, I mean, we haven't done it yet. And then like 3/4 through, I'm like, no fucking way. Now, no way. But but that implies that I had some idea myself, and I'm not gonna say whether or not I did, I guess, but yeah. At some point you realize you're writing a book that never shows the monster. That was like an interesting moment, in this room that I was writing it in.
Because it doesn't, it doesn't matter. It's like no matter what you put on screen, it's not going. Somebody's going to say, "Oh, that's not that bad."
I had a meeting in LA on the Universal lot. It was actually, it used to be Lucille Ball's bungalow, the office that this producer has, and that was thrilling for me. But it was storyboards of the movie, and I'm out there. It was almost like imagine a semicircle of producers. There was 6 of them, and I'm just sitting on this couch. It was almost like a Coen Brothers movie. I must have felt this big and so little. I'm like, oh my God.
You're at the grown-up table.
They're like, look at this. And it was this giant like storyboard. I'm like, Barton Fink, like, this is wrong, you know? And I'm like looking through and I saw there was a segment of like a claw or something like around like a door opening it. I'm like, oh, wait, what's this? You know, and all of a sudden I had like all the confidence in the world to be like, no, you shouldn't. This shouldn't be in there. Like there should be no image whatsoever of the monster. They're like, oh, but it's just kind of like, I'm like, no, nothing. We shouldn't know anything.
Fear of the unknown. Once you see any of it, then I have we have a writer friend by the name of Scott Thomas. I don't know if you know him or have heard of him, but one of his favorite things to say is explain nothing. That's how he is in his fiction. There's he's got a lot of books out, but I'm thinking specifically of a book of a collection called Over the Darkening Fields. And there's one short story in there where it's about this really bitter winter night, somewhere, it might have even been Detroit, where they're passing out blankets to the homeless and doing whatever they can so that these folks don't freeze. And these mysterious things keep happening. Like these people are like, I don't want to give it away, but at the very end, the guy's just like, and this is what happened that night. It was so horrifying and strange. And I don't know what it was all about. It never happened again. And I just think that's brilliant.
No, me too. I love that. In fact, in almost every, and it's going to sound so cliche, but in every single meeting that I'm in on like the film side of things, it's, can we get like the rules and the backstory, whether or not it's shown in the movie? And it's like, no, we don't know. We don't need it. Like two people at a county fair and something impossible breaks the sky and vanishes into another piece of the sky. We don't need any more than that.
Right.
The second you give any more than that, it's like, I was reading, what's it called? Hannibal Rising. I was reading recently. And actually that book's actually kind of good, I think. It's like more like goth than I was expecting, but I'm just thinking like, why am I reading an origin story? Why do I need to feel bad for this dude? Why do I need like his sister?
Like Darth Vader. I don't give a shit about what Darth Vader is good.
I just want, and I was very careful with like Daphne in that way. I was like, there's nothing sympathetic, but I would see in reviews, they'd be like, Daphne was like bullied. I'm like, no, she wasn't. But that's like an Mandela thing too. It's like, well, she must have been. She's this terrible, evil thing. No, she wasn't bullied. She's just bad. That's fun.
I posted the link to Over the Darkening Fields. In case
right
you want to check it out. And,
I have this whole list of things in front of me.
I think I actually might have an extra copy. If you don't want to buy it, I can send it to you. It's up to you. But yeah, you'll enjoy it. He's a really brilliant writer. I wish he was more well known. So I do what I can, just a little bit. Well, before I get to spin a black yarn, I do want to ask, speaking of experiences, how did it feel when Bird Box became a movie? You got, I think you got to go there when they were filming, right? For a day or two, at least. I'm trying to remember your social media posts from back then. And Sandra Bullock and so forth.
I met Sandra Bullock in the most crazy way. Like, Alice and I went out, and who else was there? My agent and my manager were there as well. That when I call Ryan, and Ryan's like one of my best friends. It's weird to say my manager was there, but Ryan, he is my manager, I guess. So anyway, we were there. He has a lot of photos of me at like the food truck. They're embarrassing. I'm like stuffing my face the whole time. Anyway, and really, it's like truly embarrassing. It's like, here's Josh on set. Anyway, there was like 12 hours of them filming, and Alice and I mostly, so it's like a lit up like sound, like where they're filming is like lit up, right? And it was Sandra Bullock and Sarah Paulson in a scene that they have together. And then the rest of the giant warehouse is like dark. This includes like where all the cords are going and the crew and the food truck and everything's like in the dark. And at the end of this like 12 hours, one of the producers kind of like appears in front of me. He's like, hey, there's someone I want to introduce you to. I was like, oh shit. I was like, like freaking out. And he like walks me through like the crew and gear and all this. And I'm like losing my mind. And he walks me out under these spotlights. And there's Sandra Bullock like in full Mallory makeup and costume. And then everyone just like stepped back into the dark. And I'm like, I felt like I was like meeting her like under the bright lights. I was as if like her whole life is that. That's what it felt like. I was like, it was almost like again, like Coen brothers ask or something, like everything, every moment of the woman's life was spotlit or something. And I'm like there, like, and she was like super funny right away. She's like, I know, we're ruining your book. Your book is so much better. This is all a bunch of bullshit. She was like, really
Did
fun.
she say that? That's sweet.
Yeah.
What to say?
And at the fucking buzzer, and I'm so glad about this. And we were about to walk away from each other, and I was like, oh wait, I want to introduce you to Allison. And like, I'm so glad I did that, because like to this day I'd be like, yeah,
Oh, you'd never, yeah.
Introduce me to her. So I grabbed Allison and like pulled her into the light, like, yeah. But that's why I met her under extreme circumstances. But I was so nervous for the like premiere in LA that I was in a hotel room, and Allison was like getting ready for like 90 minutes or something. And I'm not lying when I say that for those 90 minutes, I stood in like the TV room of the hotel room. And I'm just like stood in one place, just like staring at the ground. I couldn't even move. I was so nervous because I knew that we were like going there and that we were supposed to like be in this green room with everyone from the movie. And then we were supposed to like walk on like this red carpet thing. We were all supposed to like walk in front of like the screen. I was like paralytically afraid. I'm not kidding. Like to the point where we almost wanted it to be canceled. That's how like anxious I was.
Yeah,
I
can see that.
Yeah, and this is before I discovered Xanax. I don't know if you guys know that I discovered Xanax. I was like mining for it in San Francisco.
So that was you.
Like, something to help. It's like, yeah, that's a great skit. Like a Jewish dude like freaking out, like mining for Xanax or something. And
so
then
that was
you.
A lot of people appreciate you doing that.
Yeah, no, it's true. And so this was pre-Xanax, and I mean, I was just going completely on, whatever little dollop of bravery I have within me. But we made it there, and the minute I stepped into the green room area where all the cast were, I was like, man, these people are like, they're like weirdos. Like what they were talking about and shit. They were like drinking wine and talking about the same kind of shit that I would talk about with my friends. And I was like, oh, you know what? There was this feeling of like, actually, I belong in this room, like versus like the room my dad's in right now. Like I belong in this room. You know what I mean? Like this is like art-minded weirdos. And I felt like
that's
at home,
nice, man. That's good. Yeah. Was Sandra Bullock in that room at that?
Yes.
Good. Yeah. Well, it's well deserved, man. Congratulations.
Hi, thanks.
Yeah. So Spin a Black Yarn is your newest book. It came out this month, right? Am I remembering that correctly? This isn't the real book. This is the art. You've got the.
I mean, it looks almost exactly. This is
that's true. So, man, the spelling errors I found in this. No, I'm kidding. I didn't find it. Thank you for the book. Thank you for signing it. That was really nice of you. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks,
John, have any of you gotten to this yet? It came out on the 15th, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, all I can say is anybody watching now, I know he's got a lot of books to choose from. 38 books, man. How does anyone even write 38 books? That's like Pete Rollick level of prolific,
Stop.
Yeah. I tell Pete, I think he's got a clone. He gets so much done. But anyway, you want to talk about this a little bit? This is not a novel and this is not a collection per se. This is 5 novellas. So
they were written, they weren't, collected. They were written in a row.
Oh, okay. I was going to ask that. Yeah.
So it was like an intentional, like I guess like writing an anthology movie or something, like setting out to intentionally, each story different and that kind of thing. It originally started with a 6th one. Daphne was the opening story, and again, I saw it as like, hey, let's pitch a fastball. Let's give like a straight sort of horror story, like a slasher story, and then we'll get more expansive as we go. But the editor at Del Rey was like, hey, Daphne should be its own novel, and you can open this with Half the House is Haunted, which is story 2. And she thought that would make like a better opener than Daphne anyway in this way. So that is it's still funny when I open it, I almost expect to see Daphne because that's how it was for me for like a couple years, you know. But yeah, it was all done in a row. And to me, the one that I'm most excited about is the one that I'm do not expect anyone else to be excited about at all, is, or not the most at least, is Igorov, the last one. And that was, I'm like a fan of Russian novels. And obviously I don't speak Russian or read Russian. So that means I'm always, any Russian novel I've ever read is a translation. And oftentimes these Russian translated novels are a bit clunky, a bit sort of like, did this scene really need to be here? It seems to me like sudden flights of philosophical fancy. Like there's something I love about the sort of like imperfect, it's not like a bullet thriller, right? It's like it meanders. It's a little bit kitchen sinky, most of these books. And so I wanted to write a story that felt that way. I wanted to write a story that felt like a Russian translation. I wanted it to have scenes where my editors would be like, do you really need this? And be like, no, but let's leave it. And like, oh, does this guy really need to go off for like 6 pages? No, but let's leave it. So there was a lot of that with Igorov and the rewrites, which were, yeah, no, yeah, this isn't the right, quote unquote, right way to do it. But I was like going for, I guess, like a mood with it that I feel like I got. And so Igorov means a lot to me in terms of like challenging myself, or like stylistically, or that kind of like some sort of like office acrobatics or something. So that's not the greatest pitch for the book, but that story means a lot to me for that reason.
You know, that classic boring question that you should never ask a writer at a party or anywhere. So where do you get your ideas? But I do find it interesting to talk about particular stories, like you know, what the genesis of them were, like you just explained about Igorov. So I want to ask, especially about Doug and Judy by the house washer. The very first sentence in this, guys, is Doug and Judy Barman are assholes, and it goes into great detail about how everyone they know, everyone they've ever met, thinks they're assholes. It was just, I loved it. It was classic. But yeah, how did that story come about? I mean, what
So
a strange.
Allison and I, yeah, that's a strange setup, that one. Allison and I had just moved in like the first house that we'd ever really, either of us had lived in like on our own ever, you know. And it wasn't like huge or anything, but it was a full house to ourselves. And we're like walking around like, wow, we live here. Wow. You know, we were even just renting it too. We were like, we live here. And at some point I was like, how the fuck are we going to clean this place? Was someone like, we got to clean this place? And then I was standing with her in like the living room area, and I was like, oh, imagine if you and I are like right here and this tube comes up around us to the ceiling. And then the whole house is filled with this solution that can clean everything. Corners, rugs, pages of books, a toothbrush, like it's a sort of intelligent liquid that knows how to clean everything. So we sit here in this tube reading, or like, you know, making out, whatever we want to do. And then when the house washer is done, the solution goes away, everything's clean, and we step out and great, right? So for years I would say to her, like, we got to buy one of those house washers, you know? And then because that sounds amazing. And then I started thinking, man, what if a couple of assholes got stuck in that thing? And the evidence of their stepping on people to get to the top, the evidence of like
assholery.
And the evidence of their assholery was swirling around them in that solution. And you'd be like, you know, like a photo of an old friend, an old business partner you dicked over, or like, you know, like a bill comes up that you like somehow lied about and never paid, whatever it is, like all these like things. And the two of them gradually start to feel a little more claustrophobic for that.
And there's moments in here. I love audiobooks as well. I love to read, and I also love to listen to audiobooks. And this particular book, I did not listen to the audiobook, but I almost regret that, because there's moments in this story and in the other stories where it's creepy enough to read, but if you're listening to the story, say at 2 a.m. in the dark in your bed, you'll be like, well, let me go turn that light on for a little bit here. You know, like I don't want to give anything away, but like in this particular story, then they see a hand flattened against the glass, things like that, where it's just out of nowhere. You know, so it's just there's some very creepy lines and
You know,
scenes.
a couple things. One, Ashley Lawrence did that story. Ashley Lawrence from Hellraiser did that story.
Really?
Yes, and like I met her at a horror convention a while back, and her and I had been talking for a while. She was going to do On This the Day of the Pig, Pearl. She was going to do that book. That didn't work out, but then she did a couple of stories for this one, and she did that story you're talking about. But one thing I never thought of is what you just said, which is super interesting. Like an audiobook at night with the lights off. I've never like done that before.
Every night when I go to bed, Josh, I have an audiobook that I put on.
No, that's interesting because you can't put the brakes on.
Right.
Like if I'm reading like a scary scene or something, I can be like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna give me a second. But if that audiobook's running, you're just sitting there in bed in the dark. That's what you do.
Especially if it's a great narrator. There's a book by Alex North called The Shadows. He's a really great writer. And I read some of the book on Kindle, but I listened to probably 80 to 90% of the book. And it's probably one of the creepiest audiobooks I've ever read. And it's one of those stories that brings in the audio brings an added dimension, I guess is the best way that I can put it, to the story. Especially, you know, if you are in that environment, if you are laying there in the dark instead of rolling down the highway at 3 p.m. on your commute, that's a little bit different, right? So that's my favorite way to listen to audiobooks is, you know, and they're mostly horror, but I mean, I listen to a lot of mysteries as well, but hell of a lot of horror. And another one that really brings an added dimension is Tim, who's the guy that played the clown on it? I can't remember his last name.
Tim Curry.
Tim Curry. He reads, and I'm blanking on this title again. You might have to help me, Pete. Stephen King's short story set in England, the Lovecraftian one.
Crouch End.
Crouch End. Thank you. I've read Crouch End several times over the years. Been many years since King published it. But Tim Curry reading Crouch End and listening to that in the dark is just creepy as fuck. And there's a lot of examples like that, but like those are two that I always think of when I talk about this. That is a really great creepy novel, The Shadows. If you do listen to it or read it, I'd be real interested to know what you think about it. And you know, like I said, Crouch End is another example.
I have in front of me listed now. I have Alex North, The Shadows. I have Scott Thomas. I have The Old Ways. I have The Family Condition, The Last Exorcism, and I also have Pete's Brilliant Idea, a section of the book where the other three characters say what they thought of the night. The other three people, not even characters, what they thought of the nonfiction night, which is absolutely genius and going to happen. Yeah, and I don't even feel like that list is everything.
Well, that's the big complaint, you know, faux complaint we get on this show time and again is that, you know, we add to people's huge TBRs. Bridget, I don't want to speak for you, but you told me once that, well, you were a listener of the show before you became a panelist.
Yes.
And you said something about, you know, listening to our podcast on your commute and all these book titles. And you're like, damn it, I got to pull over and write them down. Right.
Yes. And then I started watching YouTube when you would post the podcast live just for that reason, so that I would be at home watching YouTube and I could actually write it down.
Mike, you should just put like, you know, at the end every week when you post the chat, you should just put a list of media titles.
Well, I
actually
actually do a lot of them.
Oh, you do that?
Yeah, but I don't I don't catch them all. I mean, they got to have an excuse
I
to
need to
listen to it,
unlock my
right?
office door. Give me 1 second, guys.
Sure.
Matt used to put them in the easing community, but then people got really confused that weren't following the podcast.
Yeah. So, yeah, in the show notes, I do put some of them, but I don't catch them all. So, and I link
They're
when
not
I do
Pokemon?
it, I link to the book. Like I'll put Over the Darkening Fields by Scott Thomas in the show notes today, and I'll link to it on Amazon, for example. So yeah. Yeah, so I really enjoyed that story too. And where's the other one? Oh, the other one that I liked them all, but the other one that was really interesting to me as someone interested in astronomy was the Jupiter drop.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, so it reminded me, even before I started reading it, it reminded me of a story I read. God, I must have been in my 20s, so 30 years ago. Who knows how old the story was then, but it was a short story about a an astronaut, basically. But he did this same sort of drop, and this seemed just so scary to me. The entire planet was a water planet, and it had life that had naturally evolved in it and everything.
Oh,
I
that's
don't
sweet.
Yeah, I don't remember if it had a very small rocky core or not, but it was just, if it didn't, then the gravity somehow was, I mean, the water was maybe dense enough that, and the planet was huge enough that it held together. I'm not sure how that would work.
It wouldn't.
Yeah, well, then
I mean,
it would have to have
He's the core.
yeah, it would have to have a really dense rocky core then.
I
With
read
a
that
big gravitational pull.
in Jupiter, there's like some like layer that's like a frozen lake or something, or like a thick lake or something like that. I didn't, he doesn't fall through. And I mean,
Yeah.
that, like I said, like don't care about research at all. And I probably should, because there's somebody that would read the Jupiter drop and be like, what? Right.
Well, actually,
Jupiter.
your rocky core that you mentioned in the story, I actually looked that up because I couldn't remember, and it's a 50-50 on that. Some scientists think there is one,
Yeah.
some think there isn't one. Who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. And but it was just the concept. Like, dude, I wouldn't go on the Jupiter if it was a mile away from my house, the Jupiter drop. I wouldn't.
Oh, shit.
I wouldn't do that to spend like 2 months like free fall through a foreign like planet, and all these the violent storms and whatever.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, it was that angle of it, like the insanity of doing something this claustrophobic, and that was so like exciting to me. I get really excited about like and Goblin is sort of the epitome of this for me, like characters that are obsessive or become obsessed with something, or that kind of thing. I think probably because I don't know, like people's obsessions say a lot about them, just like maybe their last wishes would, like the things that like writing all these novels or whatever, like that, like what a fun story to write about a guy in Goblin that can't stop writing books or whatever. And it's so the Jupiter drop to me is like, oh man, this guy, like turn around, but you can't turn around. That's the thing. Once you start going, it's like you got the years to get there, and then you got the 2-month drop, and then you got to get all the freaking way home. If he survives the drop.
Yeah, and the creepy line that kept getting was near the beginning of the story, if memory serves, and repeated several times. There is no life on Jupiter. If you think you saw life on Jupiter, you are mistaken. Which I'm like, oh boy, he's gonna see life on Jupiter. I'm loving this.
Yeah, you're definitely gonna see life on Jupiter with that line. Yeah,
but it seemed like it had, as crazy it might sound, some things in common with the Solution story.
No, I know, and that was not intentional. Because while I wrote all of these like in order or whatever, the Jupiter drop was actually added in after, and last. It was like kind of like it was a story I'd written before, and then it added in, and the editor was the one that wanted it next to Doug and Judy, and I was like, well, that seems like odd to put these two together. But then it was like, actually, why not? Why not? Like you have the more horror opening and the little more sci-fi bent, and then the horror like exit. And I was like, actually, okay, I kind of like that. It would be the equivalent of like sequencing an album and putting maybe the two slower songs next to each other. That might seem counterintuitive, like you can break up the album with that, but why not have this actually be that phase of the album? And so those two become a sort of a singular phase to me of this book.
Yeah, because in the solutions cleaning story, the couple, they're trapped in this tube, right? For the duration of the cleaning. In the Jupiter drop, he's, you know, and it's, they can see through the tube and everything. In the Jupiter drop, it's similar. I mean, it's an apartment that's dropping through Jupiter, but it's all glass walls and everything. And once he's made the decision, he can't reverse it. He can't stop it, just like the solution. They can't, you know, they repeatedly try to say to the solution AI or whatever it is, stop, we're done, and it just ignores them, you know.
Oh God. The part of the Jupiter drop that makes my stomach turn is that moment where it's about to drop and he's like, you know what? I don't want to do it.
Right.
That moment right before, like, no, dude, you're in the apartment, you're about to fall for 2 months, and he's like, oh, no, I've changed my mind. Drop.
Well, you know, the other part to me that would be really hard to take is you go through, and correct me if I'm wrong, Pete, on this, but you drop through Jupiter and gravity is pulling you towards the floor, right?
Right.
But then once you get past the middle point, gravity's pulling you towards the ceiling.
Right.
You know, and there's this moment where it's like you're in free fall, you know, or maybe more than a moment, I don't know. But is that approximately right, Pete? Would you think?
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
You're the scientist. So
Yeah, but maybe you just flip the building, you know, you rotate the.
yeah, I'm sure that in the Jupiter drop they did. Yeah.
Yeah, they had those like propulsion jets. I mean, it's all
right.
That's what I mean. It's like all you need to say is, well, the jets are taking care of that. Done. We're all good with that. Yeah. We're all good with that. In this office, we are.
Hand waving. Yeah, that's all you gotta do. So yeah. Any other guys gonna, you know what, Matt? Why don't you ask your question?
I didn't have one.
You always ask what's next.
Well, what's next?
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate your contribution.
He's like, there's like 28 novels behind his desk.
Yeah. And you don't think he's working on anything else, right? Well, what's next is
you are in a unique position. You have pursued a passion of music that has been very fulfilling for you for many years without essentially with financial freedom. And now you are having success in writing and your works are being put into other media. This is all incredible. So the real question is, you know, what is next on the horizon? Is there any other medium that you're going to explore? Is there something, other kind of adaptation you're going to do? Are you working on, let's be crazy, like a musical, a rock opera,
or more movies coming from the books?
Love all of that. Recently I made a couple like horror soundtracks, instrumental stuff.
Nice.
Which that was so fun, and I want to get more into that. I do have a fantasy of directing a movie of one of these. I think that might be on This the Day of the Pig, Pearl. I think that my manager was talking about him writing the script and I could direct it. There's this awesome farm we know in northern Michigan, like right up here at the top, that has like pigs and everything, blah, blah, blah. It's like a perfect setting, and they said we could do it. There's that. But my biggest fantasy is, and this is kind of odd because I've always kind of thought like in my 50s, this is what I want to do. And I'm 48 now. I want to open like a Grand Guignol, like horror theater in this area. I want to like not horror movies. Like I want like short or, you know, stage plays with practical effects and like live like music, whether it's synthesizers or band or with piano or whatever. And you know, someone's head gets chopped off. It's like a, you know, rolling across the stage, you know, and like, but I want it to be scary. I want it to be dark in there. I don't care if it only seats like 30. I want it to be like dark, and I think I have just this fantasy of like buying the building that, so you walk in the front door and it's like a horror used bookstore area in the lobby. Then you go through, here's the theaters part. And then beyond that is a big sort of warehouse area. Allison is like a visual artist, amongst other things. And like she could be working on like paintings and props or whatever, and I can write my novels back there. So it's
Oh,
sort
I
of this
love it.
fantasy.
See, the thing is, there are people who are doing close to what you want. I'm thinking specifically of George R.R. Martin, who actually, when he started writing, was writing episodes for Beauty and the Beast. And he owns a movie theater in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I think he has
I know it's New
a
Mexico.
movie production company now. And I believe he also has some interest in a local theater. So there are people who are kind of doing that.
Well, there are the spaces here in Detroit available. I mean, my God, like, it seems like every day there's either a different theater or like a firehouse or whatever. I went and looked at one that was crazy because the theater was upstairs and it was like perfect. It was great. But the downstairs was like a whole like club. And I'm like, no, I don't know. Wait, I don't want to like, I don't
You
want
know
like,
who you should talk to, and she's
is it like a lady that we had on the show?
Yeah, I was about to say, you know who you should talk to. I don't know if you know her, but she's in your part of the country too. She's in Detroit. Is Kathy Koja.
Oh yeah, no, I know Kathy well. I
And
love
what she's doing. Yeah.
I have gone to all but like her last immersive theater
Oh, then
event.
you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh,
Yeah.
Kathy is one of
She's
like
the
my,
bee's knees, man.
oh yeah. She's come over many times to like parties, and her and I get like coffee, and she's like, we're like 4 miles apart from each other. So.
Oh, that's great.
I love. And you know who else is from right in this same little, well, two other, Thomas Ligatti's from right here.
Right.
And so is Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell are from like, they're like 3 miles like that way.
Yeah. Although Ligatti's not real social.
No, and he worked at like a nonfiction like a publisher, like Print House. I can't remember the name of it right now. It starts with a D, I think. And I knew like people that knew him there, and I'm like, you know him? And they're like, yeah, he doesn't like really say a word. They're like, he doesn't like talk to us at all.
Well, here's a funny aside about Ligatti, about Tom. I'm not saying we're friends, we're friendly, and we were emailing back and forth about a year ago about the TV show Supernatural, which I never would have thought that Tom Ligatti was a fan of Supernatural. So we went back and forth about some of the episodes and everything.
Didn't he say he also watched the Hallmark Channel?
No, I did not say that.
I watch some shit like that. I swear. I need palate cleansers sometimes. I don't know about you guys, man, but some of this shit I watch, man.
Hey, I watch Summer in Time. I love that.
I'm like, you know what, Allison, is there like a Tara Reid movie or something? I can't handle I can't handle one more ounce of horror right now.
You mentioned
last night I watched Red, White, and Royal Blue.
Good for you.
It's if you don't know, it's a gay romance between the president's son and a British prince.
That sounds fantastic. And that may be the next one that we watch.
With Uma Thurman, no less.
Sweet.
Amazing.
Ted Lasso, we don't have to get on this trip, but Ted Lasso was like a good version of that for all of us, like I'll be watching like Martyrs, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, man, like I need like Ted Lasso,
you mentioned Sam Raimi. Have you read Ian Rogers' Every House is Haunted? That's going to be.
I read like, is it stories or is it?
It's a collection, yeah. But
yeah, I read like one or two of the stories, but not the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually can't grab the book because my camera is sitting right on top of it. But yeah, that's going to be that's one of those stories. Is going to be.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I would like to meet that guy. He's in Canada, right?
I think so. I'm going to have him on the show. When am I going to have him on the show? Let me look it up.
I feel like Michigan writers and Canadian writers, we should know each other. We should meet.
That sounds right.
Well, you're in Detroit, right? That's north of Canada.
I know. I was born north of Canada, man. Because Windsor hooks under. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no, I know what Ian and I are doing. We're gonna figure it out after the new year when he knows more about the timeline of the movie, and then we want to talk about it closer to the movie. So that's what that. Yeah. Really, really nice guy. So. And
Most of the
really
horror people
talented guy.
are. Speaking of nice guys and nice things to say, I wanted to tell you, Mike, you have like an incredible voice for this. Like,
Oh, thank you.
I've heard you before, obviously, and then here being addressed by you I was like, wow, this guy's, man, his voice comes right at you, man. You got like a good radio, you got a good podcast radio voice, man.
Oh, thanks. That's kind of you to say. I stopped at a gas station about a year ago and taking my mom to the doctor and stopped in, get a Coke, and get something for her. And so then I go up to pay and she gives me my change and everything. And she goes something to the effect of, thank you. I don't know what her name was, but let's say it was Mallory. It was say, okay, say thank you. She said to me just like this. Well, say thank you, Mallory. I was like, oh my gosh, did I forget to, was I rude? Did I forget to, was my head in the clouds? Did I forget to say thank you? Everything. She was like, no. I'm like, well, I'm confused. She goes, I just want you to say my name with your voice.
Yeah.
And I thought I was it for the rest of the day, man.
Yeah. And you got a special voice.
Yeah, thanks. Michael Rosenbaum's told me that too. And F. Paul Wilson. So you're not.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Anyway, thanks for that. Anything else we forget to ask Josh? Pick up Spin a Black Yarn, everybody, by Josh Malerman. There you go.
And please announce on social media or whatever, if you do end up making this kind of theater.
Yeah.
I'm not so far away. I couldn't come up for a show,
Where are you at?
Peoria, Illinois.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that would be, yeah. Again, I told you I went and checked out that one, and I'm like, wanting to make this happen. Just like I was opening, like it was just too much. It was like, I was like, man, but then I don't want necessarily, I've been in some awesome theaters that are just in a strip mall and it's one room that they partitioned off. That works, but I think something more than that though. So I don't need like the whole like building, like nightclub thing turned into this, but I also don't think I want just like a little room. So I'm not sure what that means, but I am on it. And also,
keep us posted.
Other people can be involved. We talk about that backspace area, right? Like my drummer, he needs like a workspace area, and he actually does buy buildings. So maybe we buy this together. So I have like a lot of like ways of thinking about this, but it's going to happen, and I only have 2 years left to figure it out.
It's a really, really fun idea.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, John had to bow out earlier for those who are listening and not watching. But I'm glad we got to see him. Josh, the rest of us are going to chat for about 10 more minutes about some other stuff, but you're welcome to bow out. I really appreciate you coming on the show, man.
Yes, thank you. That was awesome. I'm actually going to go rewrite now. So
all right,
that's great. Thank you all. Love to all the listeners. I'm going to go try to do scary shit instead. All right.
Sounds good, man. Thanks for being here.
Can I have any of you seen Mad God?
Yeah. I haven't yet, no.
Okay.
You guys watched it last night, right?
What is the absolute, hands down, weirdest movie you've ever seen? Because for me, up to this point, it's always been Eraserhead.
I mean, we're talking about Hallmark
his
stuff.
Life in her life, that's weird, but it's kind of surreal, and there's sort of a plot. The skill on display, the imagination is really, this is why you watch the movie. But this is not a movie you watch twice. It is so freaking weird and disturbing and grotesque.
The guy went half nuts making it.
Well, no, I think it wasn't the making of it. More like, let's say this is a reflection of his internal mental dialogue, maybe. I don't know. It's just,
he did have a rough time, though. I mean, it took him years. I mean, I don't know the
decades
full story, but yeah.
But it's like I've never seen anything quite like it. The animation, for stop animation, there were 3 throwaways in there. There are these things on the, like at one point they passed by the Cyclops statue from Ray Harryhausen.
Right.
And then at one point there was a Robbie the Robot. I distinctly saw. And then there's this monolith coming out in space, which is maybe a nod to 2001: A Space Odyssey by Kubrick. So there's probably other Easter eggs in there that I'm not well informed enough to recognize. but the guy he is amazingly skillful, and certainly
Yeah.
this will hold your attention, but I don't even know if I enjoyed it, man. What did you think, Pete?
It is
Intense.
so it's very intense. That's a good word for it. It's also bleak. And
Yeah, very.
it is a horrific setting. And I'm not sure. Supposedly there is a decent storyline in there. I'm not
Really?
sure that there is.
There was a very vague,
Yeah.
overarching. This guy is making these weird robot things and dropping them into other places in the world, and they go and do things for him.
Right. But
Maybe that's
maybe it, but I'm not sure it matters.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
like we were saying, plot schmont, you know? It's
Yeah,
like,
exactly. If you can string together enough scenes so when I was in college, I was a big horror fan, and I took a course in horror film. And at the end of the course, it's like I was the only one who was actually a big fan of horror film. And at the end of the course, the question came up is like, what do you think that's been made recently that's really, really good? And I put out there,
Reanimator.
no, this is it's the vampire film, semi-western, with
With John Carpenter's
Dusk to
vampires.
Dawn. Dusk to Dawn.
with Bill Pullman or Bill Paxton, Near Dark.
Near Dark. Yeah. Oh,
Near
man,
Dark.
beautiful movie.
And I got poo-pooed on that, but now now I'm vindicated 40 years later. But more importantly, when the question came up is like, there's a real art to horror and putting horror together, and you can't deny that there's some skill in putting prosthetics and clay sculptures and all this stuff together. And I think what Phil Tippett has done here is basically, the Goya of animation.
Mhm.
It is both beautiful and horrific at the same time.
I see it, and I haven't seen it yet, but I see it as this intensely beautiful, horrific, insanely talented piece of work that I don't think I would enjoy, but I can see how it could be called great, because it is all the effort, the talent that went into it.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, moving on. I believe I have this in the show notes. I just joined Goodreads, believe it or not. And it seems like to me that with all the kind of crazy things happening with social media lately, Twitter/X, whatever, it just kind of struck me that Goodreads is sort of a social media for book lovers. What are you shaking your head at?
Goodreads has had serious social media issues.
Yeah, so is every social media platform.
Yep. But it's Goodreads is not immune.
Well,
So.
all I'm saying is, if you're interested in what I'm reading, follow me on Goodreads, because I'm posting that there now, and in other places, of course. So that's all I'm really trying to say. I'm not going to bore everybody by listing these, but I've got some enhanced and different Patreon benefits, and they're really, really cool. Just go to the link in the show notes and check it out. Let me actually pull up just a couple of them. Patreon.com/Lovecraft ezine. Okay, so here we go. I organized them a little bit better. Couple things. So we got the $5 level, the $10 level, the 25, and the 50. Okay, and I appreciate all of you. $5 level, what was added is we're going to be doing, we meaning the panelists, kind of a Mystery Science Theater 3000 commentary thing. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to work it so you guys can watch it won't be live, it'll be recorded, and you can queue up the movie and listen to our, I'm sure, insanely funny comments about it. This is in addition to all the regular Patreon only podcasts. Okay. That's the $5 level. Of course, every level you go up, you get the previous levels. The $10 level is always the hangout with the Lovecraft Easing panelists, usually twice a month. And that's a lot of fun. Promotion, if you're a writer, you're at the $10 level, or an artist or whatnot, within reason, what I'm saying is, if you're supporting me at this level and above, I'm going to support you too. So you got a new book coming out, I'm going to link to it, so on and so forth. So if you joined at the $10 level 3 days ago and you want me to promote your book so that you can cancel the Patreon, that's one of the conditions. You got to be there a couple months at least. It's got to be in good faith. Let's put it that way. But be reasonable with me. I'm going to be reasonable with you, because if someone's supporting me, I do want to support you. I won't list them all, but if you can look at them all if you go there. Oh, here's a good one. And this is what you told me, Pete, was not unreasonable to ask of authors and publishers. I get an awful lot of publishers and writers wanting me to promote their work, obviously. All of us together, not just me, we've built up a following with the podcast and so forth over the years. And along with that is they send us ARCs, advanced review copies, of their work, of their books, excuse me. And I'm not talking about, I'm talking about people that, are published horror writers. I share those with the panelists, but I'm going to have, with permission, I'll be sharing those with all of the people at the $10, at the $25 level and up. So what this really comes down to is at least 2 to 4 books a month that you're going to get digital copies of, that many times they're not even out yet. So it's a really cool thing. So there are more details on the Patreon, that and more. I think I'll stop there. Just check out all the levels. Lovecraft Easing, patreon.com/Lovecraft Easing, or just Google Lovecraft Easing Patreon. Thank you so much to all of you who keep it going, because that Patreon literally is the one thing that keeps the Lovecraft Easing podcast and other projects alive, as opposed to not being alive. If the Patreon went away, there wouldn't be a podcast, there wouldn't be anything. So you guys are keeping it going. Thank you. You guys here and the other panelists are keeping it going by helping me with this podcast. And if it was just me, I think it would be great voice or no, pretty boring. So anyway, somebody sent me the book, the digital book Wool, that we were talking about a couple of episodes ago.
Yeah, you talked about this last week.
Did I? I want to talk about it again. Whoever sent that to me, I appreciate it, but I already have the book, so I haven't claimed it, and I can't figure out who sent it to me. Excuse me. Usually there's a name on them, but I can't find it. I just don't want you to think I'm ignoring your gift. Pete, it is Emily St. John Mandel, not Sejan.
St. John?
It's not.
Well, she's wrong.
It is not St. John. It's St. John. I read The Glass Hotel, which is not a horror book, but this lady can write. It is beautifully written. The next one I'm going to read is Sea of Tranquility of hers, which is a sci-fi book, I believe. I'm really looking forward to it. I saw the trailer for Rebel Moon. That looks fucking fantastic. What do you guys think? Good.
I think it's like, when I looked at it, it's everything currently in science fiction and fantasy, all is in there with the kitchen sink.
It's
Like-
Zack Snyder, Matt.
It's like every darn little reference trope.
It
I
looks
don't-
looks
like,
great. to
I
me.
really want to watch it, but I'm wondering if there's going to be even like a single original thing in it.
That's harsh based on the trailer.
Just watch it. It's I don't know what did you guys see the trailer? I mean,
Yeah, I saw the
I
trailer.
did. And this was rejected multiple times from
All
from
right,
Star
well, I
Wars.
can see I'm all alone on this.
well, I
Whatever.
want to see it. I want to see it. I don't know if it's
That's the important person in the room. Bridget,
Well-
what did you think of the trailer? You're muted. You didn't see it?
No,
Oh,
I
shit.
didn't see it, but thanks for
Didn't see it.
calling me out.
Hey, whatever. That's
Look,
what I'm here
you know-
for.
The one time you asked me something all hour.
Okay, did you see The Flash,
No,
the movie? God damn it.
sorry.
That's all right. It's all right.
I told you
Been
you don't have to
reading
watch
and
it.
watching other things.
You're still cooler than all the rest of us put together.
Oh, shucks.
So you guys watched The Flash, huh? Wasn't it just the best superhero movie ever? Terrible movie.
I want to use I did use the word. I used the word joyless.
Very
You know,
apt, yes. Oh, you gotta go, Bridget? Okay. Thanks for being here.
For a superhero that thrives on action, because it's action at high speed.
Yeah.
It was boring.
The best parts of the
And-
movie were Michael Keaton and Batman and Supergirl. Those two.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's just the sad thing is that this movie has so much potential and it went nowhere with
here's
it.
the thing. First of all, I thought they did a really, really good job with the bowl of spaghetti explaining
I
their
almost expected Michael Keaton to go into time is you think it's
Wibbly
linear, but it's
wobbly.
wibbly wobbly because that's
Right.
basically what he said. It's the
Yes.
spaghetti.
Right. Okay. So I thought they did a really good job with that. But then,
Yeah,
we don't
spaghetti's
get
cool.
to see we don't get to see any of it.
Yeah.
It's and the main villain that eventually emerges towards the end.
Is there for like 3 minutes.
Yeah, but is also pretty damn obvious.
It was.
Time
is
there's that.
inconsequential.
I don't know. It's just
I'm
Cameron
done
needed-
with the DCU before it starts.
It-
Has
it's-
anyone even seen Blue Beetle? Because
okay, so one thing that's been really bugging the heck out of me is all these things that are sort of in my wheelhouse, superhero movies from Marvel, the fantasy shows like but it's just there's been so much in the last couple of years. It's just been terrible. I mean, just
Yeah.
really awful,
I
lousy,
think-
boring crap. And it's like,
with the
what have they
exception
done
of
to my what have they done to my genres? I think I was reading
with the
this.
exception of the Batman, but that's not really part of the DC.
Okay, so like I'm thinking like what are the stories that I've liked? Like I liked Andor, I liked Peacemaker, I liked Suicide Squad 2. What else? Like, there's this reviewer online who's kind of a smartass. His name's The Critical Drinker. If you want to watch any of his YouTube videos, but he reviewed Blue Beetle and he's actually, he can be a savage critic, but he said it's not bad. It's just
Yeah, but the entire plot by looking at by watching the trailer.
right. But he says as far as the superhero movie, it's not bad. It's just kind of like if it had come in a few years ago, maybe it would get more of an audience. But fatigue based on all these really poor releases
Right.
has probably killed whatever chance it has. So I
What
may
kind
have
of
watched
idiot
it.
starts the whole DCU with Blue Beetle?
Well,
Nobody.
but you got to think like what happened before Blue Beetle came out is Discover merged with Warner Brothers, right? So they used that as an opportunity to kill projects because there's this law that if you kill a project before it's released,
Yeah, Batgirl.
you don't have to pay taxes on it. But some of the things were already completely finished and past post-production, so you're not going to save any money, so you might as well release them. I personally think I'll watch Blue Beetle if I come across it on cable where I can stream it at home, maybe in a couple years, couple months. I don't know.
In a few months, it'll be on HBO Max or Max or whatever the fuck
But
it's called these
I
days.
think I would probably like it better than, for example, Ms. Marvel. You know, I think
I agree.
So,
Not having seen either.
I just think I'll view it as like this has enough goodwill of some reviewers that I trust that I'd be willing to give it a go. But I think it's a worthwhile discussion. Maybe we ought to devote more time to it. Is why has everything just suddenly seemed to go on to crap?
I have an idea. It's
I
not
do
even
too.
my idea. There is one of the actors, I think his last name is Park. He's both in Marvel, but
We
he's
should
also
do
in
a
the Barbie.
Patreon podcast on this topic.
He's also in the Barbie movie. He made the comment that studios are taking the wrong message from the success of the Barbie movie. And that is that they are going to make more movies based on toys.
Okay.
And that is going to be the winning formula from now on.
You know, is it really this hard to be a Hollywood producer or executive? I mean,
What I'm going to suggest is that, there was lots and lots of work that went into phase 1 of Marvel.
And lots of planning.
And lots of planning. And then everybody said, oh, we can just duplicate that. And if we just throw comic book characters on the screen, fans will love it. Well, guess what?
They don't.
They don't. And, if anybody who had looked at how comic books fare in history, they would know that you can't just throw characters onto any media and expect it to work. Lots and lots of comic series fail. Some never make it beyond a couple issues. So, you can't just throw comics on the screen and expect people to be happy. And I think that is part of the problem.
Another thing I've seen referenced is it's the writers or the people, the showrunners don't seem to like their source material. And they want to improve it. And then they take the biggest fan base that might like that source material, and then they kind of want to like needle them.
Yeah.
It's like they're saying, screw you. I don't care if you've been the loyal fan group. You're now out. And it's like, well, where's their audience supposed to come from?
Right.
And
so if you look at some of Marvel and DC's strategies over the last couple decades, their strategy is it's time to reboot. And their idea is that
rebooting.
If we reboot the system,
comics and movies.
If we reboot the system, we can bring in people who want to start with issue 1 and they'll be very, very happy. But meanwhile, it's a big fuck you to all the fans who've been following them for the last 10 years.
Exactly. The new 52 problem. That's exactly what happened. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Anyway, and a part of this is, look, Spider-Man's is a big money draw. So every couple of years, you have to figure out a way to make Spider-Man young again and, keep it interesting. But I, as an older person, I would love to see old Spider-Man and new characters take on the mantle. And rather than let that happen, they keep bringing new characters in, but maintaining the old characters. I think it would have been really, really cool to see Peter Parker succeed as the new Tony Stark. As a multi-billionaire based on his ideas, his chemistry, because that's what he was doing. But it just doesn't move on that way.
Well, why don't we do a Patreon podcast about this where we can devote some time to it sometime soon, if you want to.
Maybe.
You don't sound too excited.
It's depressing, you know.
It is.
Frustrating.
It's one of the great things, like when I first saw like the opening scene in Watchmen, for Zack Snyder's Watchmen, I cried, man. It was gorgeous.
The whole movie was gorgeous.
Yeah. It is a pretty damn good movie. But
You know, so surprisingly better. I didn't think anyone could ever bring that source material to the screen.
right.
And
And yes, he deviated from the original book.
I'm going
Right.
to say he improved on one particular plot point.
Sure. Okay. But you know, he had pretty much carte blanche with those characters because nobody was doing anything with them.
But then when he tries to do the same thing with Batman, Superman, the studio suddenly interferes, micromanages. You know, no matter what happens, I will say this, no matter what happens, nothing can take away the fact that I've got that, whatever you want to call it, Justice League trilogy. Man of
Right.
Steel, Batman v Superman Extended Edition, and Zack Snyder's Justice League. I can always watch them.
I think that's a pretty good series. What I would like to have seen, you know, you also had Wonder Woman in there, by the way.
Justice League is what I said. Not
No.
Batman's.
You had the Wonder Woman movie.
Oh, yes, and I loved it.
Right.
And look, this is coming from a guy, I'm a DC guy. I have yet to see the first Aquaman movie or
Yeah.
Shazam.
Okay,
But
well,
but
the
I
thing about
loved Wonder Woman.
Aquaman, it's gorgeous, Mike. The CGI is completely gorgeous
I don't care.
in the service of boring dross.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
And in the Flash, the CGI is terrible in the service of boring dross.
Yeah.
Anyway, I want to mention a couple of books that I'm just getting into. Two by Ronald Malfi. December Park, which I haven't started yet, but I just mention it because the plot looks really interesting. I don't know, I'm starting to read more of his books. It's kind of like an It thing or a Summer of Night thing. December Park. In the fall of '93, the quiet suburb of Harding Farms is shocked when children begin to vanish. One is found dead near December Park, a great sweeping expanse that is sunken below the streets and surrounded on three sides by vast woodlands, a place children believe is haunted. Newspapers call the abductor the Piper because he has come to lead children away, while kids whisper darker names for him in the school halls. Angelo Mazzone and his friends discover a link to the dead girl and take up the search for the killer, vowing to stop the Piper's reign of terror. Their teenage pledge becomes a journey of self-discovery and an odyssey into the darkness of their own hometown. I love this kind of stuff. Black Mouth by Ronald Malfi. Sorry. Give me 1 second. Let me see if I can say all this quickly. Yeah, okay. For nearly 2 decades, Jamie Warren has been running from darkness. He's haunted by a traumatic childhood and the guilt of having disappeared from his disabled brother's life. Talking about skipping ahead, nor can they deny the memories of that summer so long ago. The strange magic taught to them by an even stranger man and the terrible act that has followed them all into adulthood. I've read about 3 sentences of 2 paragraphs, and I saw a review saying that this particular one was at least somewhat cosmic horror, which is why I started this one first. So I'll throw that out there. I became aware of a book just last night called Please Believe Me. It's on Kindle Unlimited and in print by Emma I'm sorry, Emma, I may mispronounce your last name, but I'm going to read your book because it looks real. I really like the premise. Emma McElreavy. And again, the title is Please Believe Me. As the pandemic loosens its grip on the world, Alma feels like she can finally breathe again. She's an artist. And the premise that I really like is something she's never noticed before. Her art supplies move on their own. She spots shadows at the corner of her eyes something is drawing on her artwork when she isn't looking. So as the days pass, whatever's lurking in the studio, hiding in plain sight, wants Elma badly, so forth and so on. Anyway, I really like that, excuse me, premise. Have you seen Sea Fever? Pete?
Yes, I've seen it. It's not bad.
It's not.
Yeah,
bad.
was it you that recommended that? Is it Cosmic?
Yeah, it's a
Horror?
great.
It's
It's
a
like-
sea mystery with like something in the water, infection, something.
Okay,
I don't know that it's cosmic horror.
No,
that's
it's
fine.
It's
It's a
very
good horror movie though.
I
Yeah.
think it's a rewrite of William Hope Hodgson's The Voice in the Night, which was also made into
Really?
Matanga. Yeah.
Oh, then I gotta watch
It's a decent movie, Mike. We watched it on movie night.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought
And,
yeah, I thought it was you
already
that
enjoyed
I
it.
wrote it down, but I couldn't remember who.
Now, if you want current cosmic horror, The
Yeah.
Harbinger is great. Oh my God.
Harbinger.
Yeah.
What does that sound? familiar?
Nadia Bolton recommendation. Oh, it's a great.
Oh yeah.
It's so good. Oh wow. So disturbing.
Yeah.
My kids and I watched Arctic Void yesterday.
Okay. Let me have it. What'd you think?
Okay, look, it's low budget, but honestly, I thought it had a decent kind of ending.
Oh, really? See, for me, it was like really good up until the last 10 or 15 minutes. Then it's like, oh, well, let's just throw this out there. And
Oh, you guys are like exact opposites on that one.
Yeah, no, it's sort of like it has but to me, the ending makes sense. And again, it ends and then it doesn't explain anything really.
Good. That's what I like.
So
the ending
As
makes
long as
sense
it's done
if a
right.
Big tablespoon of cod liver oil makes sense.
and yet
so
anyway.
So on YouTube, I want to mention this. Of course, most of us fans of Ted Klein's The Events at Porth Farm. Chilling Tales for Dark Nights, I guess, got permission to record it on YouTube. So for those of you who are fans, maybe you want to check that out. They usually do a really great job with all their narrations, and I will link that in the show notes.
I'm gonna have to run, Mike, but
Yeah, I think that's all I got.
I want to remind everyone that you could win a copy of La Muerta Onslaught by sending an email to easyandprices@gmail.com and putting Muerta, Muerta.
What if they put La Muerta? Are you gonna do?
Then you're going to go into La Bin.
No, they're not. La Bin.
We'll draw a winner in about 6 or 8 weeks. You'll see.
All right. Thanks, Matt. You can go if you want. I mean,
All right,
you gotta
I'll
go.
see you later.
All right. See you, buddy. Pete, anything else?
What? No, I got nothing, man. We've been doing this for 2.5 hours. I'm
I
burned.
know, but Josh, man, he's so he's
I
so
love him,
excited
man,
about
but, you know,
everything.
yeah,
I love it. I love
Yeah.
that sincerity,
Yeah.
I really do. So, all right. Well, I got excited a couple of times today and interrupted you. I apologize
Yeah, it's all right.
about that. I'm just seeing if there's. Yeah, no, I think that's it. Thanks, man.
All right, talk to you later.
Good to see you.
Good
And
night, everybody.
yeah, thanks everyone. We got a long one today.
And if I don't
Thanks
see
to
you
all the
tomorrow, have a
patrons,
good
and
day.
we will see you later.